made it so small I can't get my book in. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Two
just
seconds.
what it's
So why don't we just pick an article? How you doing? Good?
I'm doing very well.
Good. You look great.
Thank you.
You do. No, you do. You look good.
I've been working hard.
Yeah. I know the case. Okay. So, let me write that down. She's giving me directions here.
You have a quorum.
Where flag prayer. How you doing?
You have a quorum. The board voted 3-1 to support the demolition bylaw. One resident, the other guy is out. Who's that? Forrest. I'd like to be recognized from a point of view. Who's going to present? Doug. Excellent. Make it real short and simple. My question is equity and fairness. I don't want to make a motion or amendment to even be left out. Clause, is that what that rule?
Well, I'm not so sure. I think the opt-out clause, I don't agree with very well. So I think there's another interpretation too. I may comment on that.
Should I make a motion to amend it, or should I make a motion to definitely postpone? Should I make a motion to definitely postpone?
No.
Maybe not.
No.
Make a motion to amend it, it will fly with the minute.
That's all right. That'd be better. What? Because if they make a motion to opt-out, in 1945, I guess that's the rule. They got to notify it, and they all write it out. I agree. Get him out of here. We have a quorum.
Don, I'm going to use this as the timer, so it's just going to, you're going to see it,
Yep.
okay? So
Good.
it won't necessarily have a bing, I'll
Yeah.
just...
Town meeting will now be in order. We have a quorum, and it looks like we have a large attendance as well. At this time, I would like to introduce the Girl Scouts.
Color guard, advance. Color guard, present the colors. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may have a seat. Color guard, retire the colors. Thank you.
For a little more exercise, would everybody please rise for a prayer? Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin this first session of our Springtown meeting, let us reflect on the state of the town of Winchester. Our property values have been relatively strong as compared to other cities and towns in the area. This, I believe, is for three reasons. One, our historically strong financial condition and AAA rating. Two, our well-trained management team and town employees. And three, our excellent school system. Tonight, let us pause to thank those town officers and volunteers who during the last year have served the town as we sought a new town manager. Especially let us thank Mary Ellen Lannon, acting town manager, for her leadership during this transition. And finally, let us welcome our new town manager, Mr. Howard, who joins us this evening as we begin this first session of the Springtown meeting. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin every town meeting, be it a special or a annual town meeting, with 7 preliminary motions. It's moved and seconded that Richard Howard, Town Manager Brian Keaveney, Controller Wade Wells, Town Council, and Mark Toogood, Assistant Town Managers who are not town meeting members, be allowed to sit at the front of the hall. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. Moved and seconded that all members of the Finance Committee and their secretary, whether town meeting members or not, be permitted to sit at the front of the auditorium during all sessions of this town meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moved and seconded that the town clerk or the assistant town clerk be permitted to occupy a desk on the platform during all sessions of this town meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. It's moved and seconded that the moderator be authorized to permit members of various town boards, commissions, committees, department heads, and petitioners of special articles to sit in the front of the auditorium during consideration of appropriate articles. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moved and seconded that unless it be otherwise ordered, all adjourned sessions of this town meeting shall be held on successive Thursday and Monday evenings at 7:30 p.m. in the Winchester High School auditorium until the work of this town meeting is done. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. It's moved and seconded that actions on all motions involving appropriations shall be contingent upon compliance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws 59, Section 21C a law known as the 2.5 tax limitation. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. And finally, it's moved and seconded that cable television coverage be permitted at all sessions of this town meeting. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would all rise one more time. And we are, for the first time in many years, all members are new because of the redistricting, and we will all take this oath together. I do solemnly swear Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we turn to page 6 in your book to hear and act upon the reports of the town offices and the Finance Committee, or take any other action in relation thereto. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a customary article on almost every town meeting in Massachusetts, that you hear the reports of the various offices. And tonight we're going to hear from the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, the School Committee, the Town Manager, the Planning Board, Library Trustees, the Committee on Government Regulations, and the Committee on Rules, and then the Board of Health. And what is customary in Winchester and in all the other towns is that we start with having a vote that the reports of the town offices and the Finance Committee be received and placed on file. And that's voted on before anyone speaks. And the custom is that you cannot ask any questions. There's no response and there's no vote on any recommendation. That comes later in the budget property. So this is to give them a chance to give us a overview of their perspective from their position as, say, the Finance Committee or the Board of Selectmen or whatever. So when we do that, one of the problems we've had in the past, and if you've seen my memo in the front, which has sometimes proved to be effective, sometimes not, we have found that the speakers were getting longer and longer, and this first article could take hours. And so the rules are that we've adopted, and the custom is that you only get 5 minutes per speaker. And obviously, some people run over, and when the bell rings, they can get a maximum of another 5 minutes. Of course, if everybody does that, it's going to be a long night. So having said that, I just make a point which I made to everybody in the letter. It is much harder and more work to write a speech of 5 minutes than one of 10. And so this will give us a chance to see who worked the hardest. And so I would now make the motion. It's moved and seconded that the reports of the town offices and Finance Committee be received and placed on file. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Our first presenter tonight is the chairman of the Finance Committee, Ms. Cluey.
Thank you. Thanks. Good evening. I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about highlights of the FY13 budget. You should have received your copy of the Finance Committee's recommendations over the weekend. We'll have more to say about some of the individual items when the financial articles are presented on the 7th. I'll begin with a quick overview of the budget, followed by a discussion of some of the changes versus FY12, and finally present opportunities for expense reduction and talk about ways the town is addressing them. We are pleased to report that the FY13 budget balances free cash usage with anticipated reversions and replenishments, $800,000 of each. This is the first budget since the economic downturn that has done this. However, note the important caveat. It excludes an FY13 appropriation which could be as large as $500,000 to other post-employment benefits, and there'll be more on this later. This budget maintains operating reserves comfortably within the recommended range, and finally, and again in accordance with the operating reserves policy, appropriates to the General Stabilization Fund, creating a true rainy day fund for the town. This slide compares FY13 to FY12. As you can see from the zero net deficit, the FY13 budget is in balance. At Fall Town Meeting, the projection showed the revenue and expense shortfall in the bottom right corner to total $2 million. Winchester's ability to maintain, and in some cases exceed, the current level of services for FY13 without requiring an operating override or net use of free cash is the result of a combination of good luck and good management by town officials. On the revenue side, the House Ways and Means budget provides a $1 million or 12.4% increase in local aid to Winchester versus FY12, with $800,000 more in funding than was anticipated last fall. Overall, the result is a projected 3.4% increase in revenues, excluding free cash usage. On the expense side, the most significant impact was created by Town Manager Richard Howard and the Board of Selectmen converting Winchester's current health insurance plan to a look-alike health plan, resulting in approximately $800,000 savings. This budget does not fulfill every department's request as we look to the future year's sustainability of the budget we are recommending. This slide provides more detail for the items that comprise the year-over-year increases. There's a difference in the way reversions are shown versus the previous slide, but in the interest of time, let's focus on the budget categories at the top. At approximately $38 million, education is increasing by $2.1 million year over year, or plus 5.8%. Spending for Winchester's growing school population represents almost half of the operating budget and 3/4 of the year-over-year increases. This slide represents a different view of the $2.4 million year-over-year increases. Changes in salaries due to contractual obligations are $1.3 million. FY13 will be the final year of the 3-year contract, and all union employees, municipal and school, will receive an AWA or a COLA of 1.8%. For teachers, this represents roughly half of their overall increase in pay, with the remainder in step and column increases. Step and column increases for municipal employees are lower, but some of these departments receive more generous sick leave buyback provisions, which are also increasing year over year. Other increases in education include enrollment and other mandated expenses, up $700,000, and an additional $200,000 versus the level services budget and the town manager budget. Health insurance is up $300,000 year over year. This increase includes the expiration of a $200,000 grant, so the actual increase is really only $100,000 or 1%, which is truly remarkable. In energy, fuel prices have increased significantly, but the impact of rising prices has been offset by continued conservation efforts by the town. FY12 changes will provide approximately $150,000 of cost avoidance in FY13. In capital, the annual stabilization fund direct appropriations are down as debt service for previously bonded projects limits the available funds. These are primarily passed through to the stabilization funds. Okay, let's see. This slide we showed last fall, which identifies categories that require cost containment. Recently, progress has been made in several of these areas, which I'll point out, but there is more to do. At the top of the page, contractual obligations is an area that typically grows more rapidly than the Prop 2.5% annual growth. Should I wait for that? Compensation is the largest budget item and an area where the Finance Committee would like to see some progress made.
Your time has expired. Do you wish more time?
Yes, please. May I have 2 minutes?
2 minutes? Moved and seconded that speaker's time be extended 2 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We would like to see a benchmarking study and strategic planning prior to next round of negotiations. Additionally, wherever possible, we support movement towards merit pay. At 11% of the total budget, 13% of operating budget, healthcare is another high-growth category with significant changes this year. It will require continued efforts at cost containment in the future. Other post-employment benefits. The Finance Committee remains committed to funding the annual required contribution, or the ARC, by FY16. The unfunded actuarial liability is $93 million, less than 1% funded, and it creates financial risk for the town. Recent progress includes completion of the OPEB report by the GASB 45 Advisory Committee, highlighting options available to the town to fund the ARC. And currently, there are discussions with the town manager, Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee regarding developing the town's OPEB funding plan. We will have more to discuss on May 7th. The trash pickers and DPW are working on a comprehensive recycling strategy for the town that includes changes to the transfer station layout to make recycling easier and reduce the volume of solid waste and the cost of its disposal. In FY13, the budget was $700,000. And the town clerk has been collecting email addresses, and warrant Article 5 will begin the process of electronic distribution of materials. Overall, we're pleased with the progress that has been made since the fall and hope that the town can continue to achieve efficiencies that will allow us to fund services at the level required.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair now recognizes the chairman of the Winchester Board of Selectmen, Mr. James Johnson.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator and fellow town meeting members. On the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to welcome you to this year's Spring 2012 town meeting. First, I would like to reintroduce Richard Howard, a man who the town staff has placed great faith in. We're happy to have Richard with us. We're looking forward to working with him and becoming very active in our community over the next years. Thank you, Richard. At this time, I'd like to thank Mary Ellen Lannon, Mark Toogood, Wade Welch, who did an exemplary job in managing the town since 2010. Their help was tremendous. One of the board's most important priorities is the development of a work plan. I'd like to highlight a few key points of this work plan that we will be focusing on in the next year. First of all is the disposition of Lockwright Farm. As you all know, the board had sent out RFPs again for the project. Unfortunately, we rejected all these proposals. They did not meet our requirement. The board will be issuing a new RFP, revised criteria using information we learned from previous proposals. We will be looking forward to working with our citizens and other stakeholders in the near future. Tom Howley will be heading this project. We continue to work on our health insurance issues for our active and retired employees. We're considering their financial impact in the towns. We are being very sensitive and fair to our employees. We think it's important we address their needs and our needs at the same time. It's also important for us to look at the town's GASB liabilities over the next several years and make some serious efforts in addressing that issue. The development of a comprehensive 3-year program is key to part of our development plan. This will include looking at operating capital needs of our community while maintaining our cash reserves, maintaining our AAA bond rating, and keeping in mind of major construction projects coming down the road, such as the Winchester High School. Maintaining the proper levels in reserve is crucial for our town, and it's an element that will play a very important role over the next 3 years. The board is working towards and will keep working towards maintaining our reserves within our policies established last year. We're looking to maintain our AAA bond rating, which is very crucial to us, and we're looking forward to meeting and working with our labor groups and developing fair and equitable contracts as we move forward in the future. We have always been and always will continue to look at opportunities for cost saving, including maximizing technology and better ways to serve our employees and the residents of our community. We seek to reduce town's expenses, such as we did with the Energy Consumption Management Group. The Energy Management Group has done a great job for this town. They've saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars by looking at energy efficient ways, bringing them forward, and proper energy management programs. The board has been successful in reaching a settlement on the agreement of the transfer station swale. As you all know, it's been a long, complicated process. We've reached agreement with the present contractor, and once the swale is reconstructed, we will present the necessary documents to DEP and hope to obtain a closure letter for the cap. The board is also looking at trash issues. The Board of Winchester's Trash Pickers Committee is evaluating the trash disposal options and opportunities that may arise from recycling to the town's trash tonnage by increasing recycling and reducing trash tonnage. The board's desire is to have a transfer station that is workable, safe, and reliable, and will maximize recycling efforts. One of the decisions we will have to be making on in the future, once we address the operation of the transfer station, is to evaluate any unused land at the facility and what would be the best use of this land. Whether it be solar panel or other issues, we will evaluate this as the process goes on. Downtown initiatives are very important to the board. Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, and the Town Manager and his staff are continuing their efforts to strengthen the economy and enhance our wonderful downtown center. We want to be ready for the 21st century. Using great neighborhood grants, we are working with outside consultants and various stakeholders to develop ideas that will allow for zoning change and various streetscaping and other amenities that would encourage desirable commercial and possibly housing development. The town center is one of our most treasured assets, and many changes will be required and will engage the work of many citizens and this town meeting as we go forward. Flood mitigation continues to be one of the board's top priorities. Several flooding projects are moving forward, along with the Aberjona widening project. We will be...
Mr. Johnson, your time has expired. Do you wish more
minutes,
time?
please.
Pardon?
Just a few more minutes, 4 more minutes, please.
It's
We'll be
moved and seconded
distributing
the
a writ-
speaker's time be extended 4 more minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
We will be distributing a written report later on in the town meeting on the process of our flood mitigation programs. Regarding 2013 budget, we are anticipating an increase of over $1 million from state aid. A very special thanks to Representative Jason Lewis, Senator Jalen, and our new Senator, Senator Clark. In addition to this state aid, we are also having cost savings in the insurance by switching providers of insurance for the town employees. This allowed us to avoid deep 2013 operating budget reductions and the use of additional free cash. We are maintaining our free cash, and we are maintaining our AAA bond rating as we speak. There are several capital initiatives that are moving forward. Some are just beginning, and some are concluding. These slides, you'll see the ongoing river, the ongoing flood mitigation project. We just received extension from the state to work through this season, and hopefully that project will be completed late summer, early fall. We're also looking to open again playground area. That's this money that people have raised. It is in conjunction with the flood mitigation program, and we're looking forward to that to be an asset to the community. Also the basketball courts. Next year, with your help, we will be doing the second gate valve at the Center Falls Dam. We've just done the fine-tuning and on the public safety building interior, the public safety building, which is the police and fire department. We propose repairing Squire Road pump stations and Thornbury Road pumping stations. We're looking forward to a new salt shed. As you can see, this one is pretty much at the end of its useful life. That will be going on this spring and summer. We will be working on and putting out bids for this part of the VW complex. This is the, quote, garage and old barn area. If you just noticed recently in the last several days or weeks, you'll see the new school zone flashes. We call them blinkies. They're to advise people of a school. It's a traffic control issue. I'm very proud of this. We believe it will save time, efforts, and possibly injury. As you know, the Vincent Owen School was just started. We're going to build a brand new school. We'll address the needs of the community going into the next century, hopefully. That's what it looks like. That was a groundbreaking. And then we're going to start working the feasibility study this year in the high school and address the needs of the high school for the next 30 to 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. And that brings us to the school committee. Chris Linsky.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Chris Linsky. I'm the chairman of the school committee. I hope this slide looks familiar. I've used it several times. Winchester, by many measures and many publications, is an excellent school district. The formula for success, everybody working together towards a common goal, providing our students with opportunity, strong values, and a great education. Our community has many resources, financial and intellectual, to invest in the system. Town leadership is supportive. Parents are involved. Private organizations and local businesses are generous supporters too. Our teachers are dedicated to each and every student. We respect the countless hours they invest in making Winchester schools highly rated. Our students are engaged, enthusiastic, successful in academic, athletic, creative, and volunteer efforts. We need to continue to support our schools to grow further despite the economy. We need to continue to invest our resources to provide students with opportunities and experiences necessary to become well-rounded young adults. Enrollment continues to grow by greater than 2% per year. The district's reputation attracts families that want to move to town, raise families, put the kids in the school system. If we drill down on the data a little deeper, it highlights that there's also an increase in the district's selected populations that require special services and increased mandated services. Growth in the enrollment drives the number of projects for buildings and the school's operating budgets. Additional students require more space, more appropriate spaces to support the current and future education programmings. Additional students require more teachers, and increased enrollment in these special populations required additional training, services, specialists, paperwork, and administration. It's important that town meeting understand that we need to periodically add funding to adequately address the district's most pressing and critical needs. We continue to address building priorities. Selectman Johnson already pointed out to you the Vincent Owen School and the high school feasibility study. It's very important, and we're pretty excited about the high school project. We think this should be something that the entire community gets involved in. There'll be websites for you to look and keep track and stay on board with the plan. We think the high school should be the jewel of this town. As looking to the future, there's the Lynch Elementary School bathrooms and the move of the central office and the repurpose of that space for classrooms. These projects are critical. The Lynch bathrooms must be renovated to support the current and future student body. Opening additional classrooms in Lynch will be, by relocating the administration, creates needed capacity. We project that even with the new VO and the additional classrooms at Lynch, we'll be at 100% of our capacity for the elementary schools by 2015. I'll also note that there's a committee that's been tasked with looking at a recommendation for the carriage house, and since the last town meeting, that committee has started to make some progress. We'll talk about the FY13 budget details on another night of town meeting, but tonight I want to point out that the school committee's FY13 budget request compared to prior years includes a request for the needs that are beyond the level service. Since the economic crisis, the schools have been funded at level service. Last year, the schools were funded below level service. They were actually reduced $400,000 from the request. That included the reduction of 3 FTEs at the high school. This year, the committee is asking that we add additional funds for our most pressing and crucial needs. The district has its plate full with important initiatives. Briefly, I'll highlight just 3 of them. The Redistricting Advisory Committee will be presenting recommendations to the school committee in May for a new school district boundaries that will be effective beginning 2013-2014 school year. There's Article 17, which requests approval for the establishment of a special education stabilization fund that could help pay for unexpected or unbudgeted out-of-district special education costs. And then there's the new DESE education and teacher evaluation process. This will have to be negotiated and implemented. So again, Winchester is an excellent school district, and the formula to our continued success is everybody working together towards a common goal, providing the students with opportunity, strong values, and a great education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're the winners so far.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is the town manager. Richard?
No PowerPoint. Chris, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And I, too, will meet your limitations on time, but I will note for the record in my previous position as mayor, it usually would take me longer just to come into the council chambers and say it was an honor and a privilege than to give an entire address, but I will live within that 5-minute restriction, Mr. Moderator. First off, let me note the wonderful welcome and cooperation that I have received in coming into the town, especially from the six select men and women that I've had the pleasure to work with over the first 4 months here. But in addition, I've made an effort to meet as many members of various boards and commissions as I could, and have taken the time whenever I could as well to meet with town residents, to hear their concerns, and to just get their perspective on Winchester. And universally, it is clear that all involved have a warm and deep love for their town, and they've been extremely welcoming and encouraging to me as I've entered this position. So I want to thank each and every one, and there haven't been too many, because it's only been 4 months that I've had that opportunity to interact with, for the very, very nice transition that I've been able to make here as town manager. I think it's fairly obvious that the most important piece of work that we've tried to put together within the manager's office has been the work on the budget. Your finance chair has more than adequately touched upon many of the main features that are contained in the Finance Committee's budget, and many are also embedded within the manager's budget as well. There were several things that happened that made the year work out better than what probably was expected at the beginning of the calendar year. Some additional revenue from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I believe some good work in avoiding some costs that were anticipated to be associated with rising healthcare costs. Both of those features in particular have made the effort on this budget to be a level-funded one without the necessity for a request for an override. But more importantly, it contains several other items that I think are extremely important as well. It has reduced the proposal to rely upon excess resources, free cash. However, it is entitled to $930,000. That's a reduction of about a third from previous years relied upon, with a goal by the manager's office at least to eliminate that reliance entirely within the next several fiscal years, so that our budget in the outlying years is based upon true revenue and true expenses. Also embedded within the budget was the effort to make sure all departmental needs were met, especially those school departmental needs, as the chairperson so again adequately drew out in his presentation. And lastly, the main feature is also to continue to reduce those healthcare costs. They're estimated on a $10 million plus cost item to grow at almost 10% a year. We want to be able to work with both labor and management to make sure that we can reduce that trend and in fact turn it the other way. So those are the things we'll continue to work on in the future. Many of the other initiatives within the department, non-budgetary, are contained within our transmittal letter to the budget itself, and also within the departmental outline that is contained for the manager's office that is contained in the budget. And I would refer you to those documents to give you an idea of what the manager's office considers to be crucial going forward here in the near term. Lastly, let me note the great work that our office has done. The 4 women who make up our support staff, together with Mark Toogood, who is the assistant manager there, have done a great job on my behalf at making sure, again, this transition was a seamless one and a productive one. And I wouldn't want to close my remarks without thanking them in particular for the wonderful effort that they have made in putting the budget together and in putting the documentation together for this town meeting. So I thank them. I look forward to future engagements on the budget in particular at later town meeting dates. And Mr. Chairman, I am finished and cede my remaining time to any willing speaker.
Thank you very much. And you're tied for first. Lance Grenzaback from the Planning Board. Good evening.
This is maps. Yes, that's correct. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, over the past several years, we've been working on a new master plan, reviewing our zoning bylaws, updating our subdivision regulations, and looking at development opportunities in the town center. I'll go over each one of those exercises and talk about the rationale that's driving them. We've been working on a new master plan because the last plan was completed in 1953 for a town that was only partially built out, partially developed. Today, the town is largely developed. You can see that in this sequence of maps from 1850 to 1900 to 1950 to the town today, and you can probably color in a few more red spots for the houses that have been built since 2005. Instead of building new houses on new lots, today we are tearing down old houses, subdividing properties, and rebuilding on existing lots. Much of this is good. We need to renew and replenish our housing stock. But in the process, we are also changing the character of our neighborhoods. If we want to maintain the value of our homes, we must pay attention to the quality of our neighborhoods, that is the look and feel of the neighborhoods, along with the quality of our schools, transportation system, and infrastructure. This means thinking forward about how we want the town and the neighborhoods to change, how fast, and where. The master plan will provide a vision and guidelines for making changes to our zoning bylaws, which are also long out of date, dating back to the 50s and the 70s. Those zoning bylaws are critically important because they set the rules of the game for what gets built, where it gets built, and how it is used. With the help of the Master Plan Steering Committee, next fall we will start bringing our recommended changes to the zoning bylaws before town meeting for debate and vote. We've updated our subdivision regulations to better manage stormwater runoff and other related issues. Every time we build a new house, add more rooms, or expand a driveway, we create more impervious surface across the town. And every time it rains, more stormwater runs downhill to the Aberjona, carrying with it sand, road salt, engine oils, and lawn chemicals. I have it on good rumor that the moderator is now stashing an inflatable raft in the back of his car when he comes down here for meetings. We have unfortunately been filling the Aberjona faster than we can bail it out with flood control projects, and this will increase. For better or for worse, however, the state and the EPA are about to put an end to this, requiring us to control and clean up stormwater before it gets to the river. This is going to be a very expensive process for the town, but we can reduce those costs by slowing down the volume and rate of stormwater runoff. We have revised the subdivision regulations to require all developers to install stormwater dry wells and other drainage controls. And we are working with the engineering department and the ZBA to ensure that homeowners who make major additions also build in adequate dry wells and drainage controls. We are looking at development opportunities in the town center to generate new revenues for the town. Over the past 50 years, we've been living off, largely, the long-term increases in property tax revenue that were gained from development of the west side and the use of old industrial properties. But we are running out of undeveloped land as a source of new growth revenue. And while we've done a good job at reducing expenses, we're also running out of ways, as I think the FinCom's presentation pointed out adequately, to cut the budget without also cutting vital school, public safety, and health services. The bottom line is the town must find new ways to generate long-term revenue growth, not just cut taxes. Our recent economic, housing, and parking studies show that the town center could readily accommodate more housing and more retail and office space, and this development would generate significant new growth over the long term for the town. We've been working with the town boards, commissions, the chamber, property owners, and developers to generate ideas for new zoning and new projects that will revitalize the center and generate new revenue, and we appreciate the support we've had from the Board of Selectmen and many of you who have worked on those projects. Now, none of these changes will be quick and simple, but they are critical to our quality of life and the well-being of the town. Finally, we continue to search out grants to support our work. This year, we believe we have captured an additional $40,000 in grants from the state. This brings the total of planning grants over the last 5 years to about $250,000, and we need that money and we need the work very much. So, Mr. Moderator, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. And next speaker is John French. Who is John? Speaking for the Winchester Public Library.
Mr. Moderator, members of the boards and committees, town meeting members, Winchester citizens, and especially devoted patrons of the Winchester Public Library. My name is John French, and I'm one of the trustees of your library. Our library is a unique institution in town. You don't have to, fortunately, pay your taxes there. You don't stop by to dispute parking tickets, and you don't call the library in times of emergency. Our library's basic function is one of enrichment and continuing education. We provide books, magazines, videos, music, museum passes, story hours, reference assistance, internet access, a homework center, business materials, and lectures, all free of charge. In short, we help to provide a gateway to the wider world. Winchester is a community that's well known for its educational excellence, and our library is a key part in this perception that makes our town so desirable. But your library is not a static institution. In 2011, we saw a number of significant changes, and I'd just like to point out a couple of them. First, on the nuts and bolts level, it might not be much to say, but we switched our dual-fuel boilers to to gas this year from oil, and we anticipate some significant energy changes that we will see, and consequently you folks in the town will see. For your convenience, we added 2 new 24-hour book drops. Again, it might not seem like much, but it will help our parking issues in back of Town Hall a lot, and eliminate a climb up the stairs just to return a book. Our successful self-checkout system has grown, and we increased the size of our collection by about 5% last year. All you owners of Kindles, Nooks, and Sony e-readers who got them for Christmas, you may be pleased to learn that you can download ebooks for free from our website. Our Minuteman network, in fact, has currently over 10,000 ebooks in the collection and another 4,000 audiobooks. Indeed, the demand for our ebooks increased during last year by over 700%, and the collection continually grows. In cooperation with Rotary, we've added a new series called Lunch and Learn. Speakers from Rotary, as well as the community, volunteer to speak on a variety of topics of interest. Recent topics have included transitioning into a new career and estate planning, among others. This summer, we're pleased to say our Teenage Roar program, which means Rush Out and Read, where teenagers go out in the community in the summertime and in the parks and in the town center read to younger kids. It's going to celebrate its 20th year. And our exemplary Friends of the Library has nearly 1,000 members and supporters and will celebrate their 30th year. We're extremely grateful for this crucial community support. We have 2 new popular children's programs added this year. One is Hola, a little Espanol, and the second is Read to a Dog, which is exactly what it says it is. If the very youngest of our readers, who are very shy about reading, seem to have no problem talking to a very nice service animal, and it's been very popular. But libraries are still about books, and there's nothing better than sharing a good book. The library offers many book clubs, and the newest one is online now, the Internet Book Club, and you don't even have to leave the comfort of your own home. Last year, through the generosity of our patrons, we're pleased to announce that our fall fundraiser raised sufficient funds for our library to maintain its Sunday hours during this coming spring, fall, and winter seasons, and we thank everyone who contributed. It's a great effort. And generous grants were also received from the Winchester Cooperative Bank, Winchester Rotary, and ENCA for other key projects. Finally, we're currently in the process of a strategic planning project in which we thoughtfully reflect on our community and the role of our library over the next 5 years. We hope you'll participate in an online survey that may come to you in this coming May, and we'd like to hear your opinions on how your library can best serve you. Also, 21 dedicated community members have volunteered to serve in our strategic planning task force, and they'll assist us with our planning program. Now is the time to let your elected board of trustees know how best your library can fulfill its mission. In closing, the trustees are very grateful that you, our town leaders, recognize that our public library continues with excellence to play its pivotal role in the lives of Winchester residents of all ages. We thank you for your support, both financially and operationally.
Thank you, John. Mr. Conti, does the Committee on Government Regulations care to make a report this evening?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the committee has reviewed all the proposed bylaw changes and finds them to be consistent with the bylaw.
Thank you very much. And I understand the Committee on Rules is not going to be presenting this evening, and that brings us to the last planned speaker for the Board of Health, Jessica Pfefferman. Take your time. We just take it off the 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator and town meeting members. Before I review the Board of Health 2011 accomplishments, I wanted to recognize a few people. Thank you to our Director, Jennifer Murphy, for her continued commitment to the Winchester's public health, to Jan Byford for her dedication in keeping the busy office running smoothly, to David Heinold for his being an insightful and longstanding board member, to our newest member, Bridget Stump, who we're looking forward to working with, and lastly, wanted to just take a moment to thank Richard Maggio, former Board of Health member, for his long tenure, and especially for his many contributions, including bringing the meningitis vaccine program to the high school and securing funding before it was mandatory. So thank you to everyone. Next, I wanted to go into highlight a few of our accomplishments from 2011. First, we proactively adopted 2 new tobacco regulations this year, which included restrictions such as banning tobacco sales in pharmacies, prohibiting smoking in cigar bars, and this includes e-cigarettes, which is something new that has been a trend in town, not this town, but and increased penalties for sales to youth. We also initiated public health education outreach to daycare centers and preschools. We recently disseminated information on mosquitoes and ticks. This will be especially important this season. Just as a side note, Lyme disease is anticipated to continue to be on the rise. We also co-sponsored a nutrition seminar with the Family Action Network targeting parents of preschoolers and school-age children, which was very well attended. We've continued to conduct collection days. We collected over 5.5 tons of hazardous household waste and approximately 410 pounds of medication for safe disposal. This is especially important as there's been a lot of press coverage around the inappropriate use of over-the-counter drugs, especially prescription painkillers. So these programs can really help keep medications out of the wrong hands. And just as a reminder, the town collects mercury-containing items year-round through the transfer station and the Board of Health office. We also conducted a rabies vaccination clinic for cats and dogs. We've had another successful year of vaccination clinic. A big thanks to Kathy Whitaker for her innovative thinking and making these possible. This was the first year that the health department accepted private health insurance for flu vaccinations. This made it more user-friendly for our residents when they went to get their vaccinations. It also increased revenue and enabled us to hold other clinics and offer more public health services. We had our 3rd annual school-based clinics. These would not have been such a success without the outstanding partnership of the 7 school nurses and the school staff. Thank you all for your help. Over 1,600 vaccinations were given at the school, and 1,700 vaccinations were given, the flu vaccinations, at the public clinics. Lastly, there are 100 shingles vaccinations, and the selectmen funded half the cost of the vaccines, and we initiated a Medicare Part D program to help defray the cost for the rest of the shot for most residents. Lastly, I wanted to go over the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community, which had another productive year. Dot Butler continued her valued work spearheading the coalition, and Bill McAuliffe has been a critical advocate for the coalition's work and sustainability.
The Board of Health received Board of Selectmen gift funding to continue activities, including monthly coalitions, the coalition meetings, which brings together key stakeholders across the town, and they collaborate on ways to positively and proactively impact our youth. Several programs were conducted, including A Race to Nowhere, a second community showing, a movie which generated discussion and then created solutions on how to positively impact stress that's occurring on our youth. There was a seminar with Dr. Robert Brooks, Raising Resilience, Stress-Hardy Children. The youth director at St. Mary's Parish discussed adolescent issues on a local level. We initiated a partnership with local ministries to discuss issues with local youth. And then there was a medication collection day and the police department 24/7 kiosk, again, which is critical in collecting medications that we want to make sure stay out of the wrong hands. And lastly, just wanted to go over some upcoming events. On April 28th is the collection day from 9 to 1 a.m. And on May 5th, we have the rabies vaccination clinic from 1 to 3 p.m. All the details are listed here, and more information can be found on the website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank all speakers. We did very well this year on the time, and I think the town meeting members appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, for the new town meeting members, in the Code of Bylaws, Chapter 2, there's a note about the first article in town meeting, and it goes like this. During the first session of the spring town meeting, as the last order of business under Article 1, town meeting member precinct meetings will be held, at which time you have an opportunity to maybe fill a vacancy if there is one, and I don't believe there is, and also to elect certain officers from each of the precincts. And so we are going to recess now, and we're asking all town meeting members to go to the cafeteria. And there will be members from each precinct that will be in charge so that they can lead the discussion, and we'll plan to be back here at 8:45. 8:45. The meeting will now be adjourned for recess.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Alan Iden. Welcome to WinCam's coverage of the first session of Winchester's spring town meeting. If you're just watching, you see the town meeting has gone into recess, as they usually do, just after the first article for precinct meetings. So let's take a few minutes and go over what we have heard so far. The town meeting convened, annual town meeting convened at 7:35. Girl Scouts presented the colors. And because all town meeting members, technically this time, are brand new, they all took the oath of office all at once. Because of redistricting, almost 7 out of the 8 precincts had all new members, had to elect all their members this year. So technically all town meeting members are new. So we went right into Article 1, which was, and always has been, the report of town officials and town officers, kind of setting the tone for the spring town meeting. And a recap of that, we did, the moderator first reminded the officials who are reporting that there is a 5-minute time limit. And he said, we'll see he said that it's harder to write a 5-minute speech than a 10-minute speech. So he said, we'll see who worked the hardest. So first up was Patty Cluey, the chairman of the Finance Committee. In her comments, she said that the budget does have an appropriate reserve in it and is balanced, the proposed budget for fiscal year 13. She attributed this to some good luck and some good management on the part of town officials. She said the education budget is up 2.1 million, or about 5.8%, and commented on some of the opportunities for expense reductions in area of contracts, health expenses, and education expenses. Next up was Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Jimmy Johnson, who welcomed the new town manager, Richard Howard. Also thanked Mary Ellen Lannon, who was the acting town manager and goes back to her position as town clerk, and Mark Toogood, who has been the assistant town manager for many years here, for their work during the search for a new town manager and in the transition over the last 4 months. He commented on the proposals, the work the selectmen has been doing on the Right Lock Farm. There were RFPs were issued, and all the proposals were rejected for development of part of the farm, and new proposals will be asked for. Employee benefits for all the town employees are being examined. The selectmen are working on a 3-year plan for operating capital regarding the bond rating and the reserves, cash reserves for the town. They're also working very hard on energy management in town facilities. Issues on trash collection and transfer station issues, including increasing recycling and use of land at the transfer station, are on their agenda. As our town center improvements, working on the master plan, continuing flood mitigation, and also commented that a small windfall the town is anticipating an additional $1 million in state aid, which was a great relief to help balance the budget. Next up was the school committee chairman, Chris Linsky, who commented on the elements of success of the Winchester school system. He said enrollment is increasing at the rate of about 2% per year, which of course means more need for space, teachers, and administration. Current construction projects, of course, include the rebuilding of the Vincent Owen School, the study committee on rebuilding reuse of the Winchester High School, and the reconstruction of the bathrooms at the Lynch Elementary School. He said even with the improvements, even with the addition, the construction of the Vincent Owen School, in 2015 the school system will be at 100% of capacity, even with these additions. He said last year the school education budget was funded below level service, and it is back to a level service funding for this year, and said that there will be new boundaries are coming for the school districts in the next, I believe, year or so. Richard Howard, the new town manager, was up next. He thanked the town for, he said, his wonderful welcome of the last 4 months and a great transition from the job of mayor of Malden to the town manager of Winchester. He said his most important work so far has been for the budget, and the budget is level funded without a need for an override this year. He hopes the town can reduce its reliance on free cash to balance the budget, and the town continues to reduce health care, work to reduce health care costs, which is a $10 million fundamental part of the budget, and is growing at the rate of 10% per year. Again, he finished up thanking the staff in the town manager's office, the 4 women in the staff, and Mark Toogood, the assistant town manager, for their great work during his transition. Lance Grenzebach, chairman of the planning board, was up next. Commented on the work of the planning board, which is including working on a new master plan for the town of Winchester. He said the last master plan was done in 1953, when the town was far from built out, to a town currently that's pretty much all built out. There's not much free space left, buildable free space. He said the planning board says the town must pay attention to the quality of the neighborhoods, and that's part of the objective of a master plan. Also, the zoning laws, which were last updated, major updates in the 1970s, need some serious work. He commented the planning board is working on new subdivision regulations, particularly with regards to stormwater runoff. He said the state and the EPA will start to control the runoff into the Aberjona at the source, which means more work on stormwater retention and more attention paid to impervious areas. He said the town needs to generate new revenue and suggested that a lot of potential for that is in the Winchester Center for new residential and business development in the center. And he said finally the planning board is seeking grants to continue their work, and it was had received a $45,000 grant from the state. John French, the chairman of the Library Board of Trustees, was next, commented on some of the work of the past year for the library, including changing the heating system over from a dual oil and gas system to a gas system. Talked about new book drops, more convenient book drops, and working to reduce parking issues around the library, a new self-checkout system, and he said the library's overall collection had increased by 5%. He also said that residents can now, who have ebooks, who have Kindles and iPads and such, can download ebooks for free at the library's website. Talked about a series of Rotary sponsored speakers and the ROAR program for reading for kids. He said fundraisers by the Board of Trustees and the Friends of the Library allowed the library to fund Sunday hours for the rest of 2012. And he said the board is working on a strategic planning project for the public library. And our last speaker before the break was Jessica Fetterman from the Board of Health, who thanked both the new and past Board of Health members, commented on the board's work for new tobacco regulations in town, the outreach of health education to daycare centers and preschools, comment on their work on hazardous waste collection, including medication collection, and the rabies clinic. Their work on a committee coalition for a safer community, worked on by Dot Butler, and reminded the town that April 28th will be another hazardous waste collection day at the transfer station. And that was it. That was Article 1. Again, in tradition for New England town meetings, Article 1 is report of the town officers and officials, and there is no debate on that. And the rest of the business of town meeting will begin in about 7 minutes. So we invite you to stay tuned, and we will be back, or I will be back, with a wrap-up of this session at the end of tonight's session. So stay tuned to us here at WinCam.
Ladies and gentlemen, The town meeting will now be in order. Ladies and gentlemen, we turn now to page 7, Article 2, to see if the town will amend Chapter 14, Section 2, demolition of historic buildings of the Code of Bylaws. And this motion, ladies and gentlemen, which I'll put at this time, is in Article 2, and a separate article, Article 3, is in addition on the same subject. And so in common practice, what we do is we allow Article 2 and Article 3 to be discussed at the same time. Obviously, when we've had enough discussion, then we'll focus first on Article 2 and then on Article 3. The motion on Article 2 is moved and seconded that the town vote to amend Section 14, Section 2, demolition of historical buildings, and it adds a new paragraph C, which adds all properties which were constructed on or before 1945. The other two categories are properties that are on the National Massachusetts Historical Commission's inventory. And this article is going to be presented by the Winchester Historical Commission. John Lamajek. Where is he? Oh, down front.
Gotcha. Thank you.
As the main proponent, you have 10 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, fellow town meeting members. My name is Jack Lemenager. I'm the chair of the Winchester.
Get a little closer to the mic.
I'm the chair of the Winchester Historical Commission and town meeting member from Precinct 6. Before I get into the meat and potatoes here, I'd like to talk a bit about the Historical Commission, give you a bit of background because I think a lot of people are unfamiliar with what we do. The commission consists of 7 members who are appointed by town manager and confirmed by the Board of Selectmen, and we serve at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. We roughly meet about once a month to deal with a number of issues concerning the town's historical assets. Our mission is really to preserve, protect, and develop the historical and archaeological assets of Winchester, and further to develop the necessary measures and establish the protective measures to ensure that those assets are with us for future generations. Our primary measure for achieving that has been the demolition delay bylaw. Adopted in 1995 by town meeting, it has been amended twice since then to improve its functionality. In essence, what the bylaw is a screening process that enables the Historical Commission to identify the historic properties that we feel are necessary to be protected. It gives the Historical Commission the chance to work with property owners so that they might consider alternatives to demolition. On many occasions, we've worked with owners and negotiated them out steered away from the imposition of the delay and achieved property renovation, relocation, or restoration. I hasten to add here, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding among town meeting members, that the demolition delay bylaw does not represent permanent taking of anybody's property, and nor does it prohibit demolition, only for a certain period of time, 12 months, but with the expectation of a positive outcome. It gives, in other words, it gives the Historical Commission a negotiating tool, as it were. And lastly, it does not inhibit nor prevent property owners from additions and alterations to their property. What it is, excuse me, is a 12-month demolition delay for properties that the Commission determines are preferably preserved. Currently, we work with 702 properties, which, as Mr. Sullivan noted, are included in the so-called inventory, which was determined by National Register of Historic Places and the Massachusetts Historical Commission's register. when we determine that a property that's been proposed for demolition falls within one of those 702 properties, we generally call a public hearing, which provides us with an open process where the applicants can come before us and make their case, as well as the abutters and affected neighbors and interested citizens. So it's an open public process, and I'll talk more about that, how that works further on here. It's covered specifically in Section 3 of Chapter 14. How it works is when a property owner wants to demolish a property for whatever reason, they go to the building department, and we are then notified. The Historical Commission is notified. If we determine that this property is covered among our protected properties, we then call for a hearing. We must call that hearing within 21 days. We must make the determination within 10 days and hold the hearing within 21 days. If we determine the property is preferably preserved and impose a delay, that delay lasts 12 months maximum. If after the expiration of the date of the 12 months, the people still want to demolish their property, that is within their rights, and we cannot stand in their way. What we're asking for tonight, as Mr. Sullivan's pointed out, is under Article 2, an expansion of the protected properties to include all structures that were built during or before 1945. Article 3, which covers some changes in Section 3, actually two primary changes what we're looking for, some word changes and some additions in Sections 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 that will improve and clarify the application process. I'm not going to read them all because you've got them in your booklets. Similarly, Section 3.6 adds criteria by which the Historical Commission will use to judge in our process of determining whether property is preferably preserved. Again, I'm not going to read that all, but essentially it's one or more of the following criteria. Again, it's spelled out very specifically in the proposed bylaw for a property to be judged preferably preserved. So why are we expanding the reach of this bylaw to include properties built before 1945? Principally to protect the vulnerable older properties that are not now currently protected. As you well know, Winchester, like most towns and cities within the Boston metropolitan area, is built out. There's not a lot of space left on which to build more houses. As Mr. Grinzebach pointed out earlier, what happens is that developers come in looking to build a new house, and they either shoehorn a new house into a very small lot, as you've seen many times, and I've seen many times in this town, or alternatively, they will demolish an existing structure to make way for larger houses that they can get that command a much higher price. So what's happened as a result of these unprotected properties, what we've seen and what causes the Historical Commission increasing alarm as we try to fulfill our mission, is that since 2000, we've seen 65 unprotected properties that predate 1945 demolished. 26 of those predated 1900. I want to talk about a couple of properties in particular. Some of you may recognize this house that's at the corner of Warren and Oxford Street, built in 1910. It's a very typical house for that neighborhood, especially the flats. It's right in the middle of the flats, and it's a beautiful house. But unfortunately, it had the misfortune of being one of those unprotected properties, and furthermore, it was one of those properties that's built on a large lot, so it became very attractive to a developer who bought it and last fall demolished it. The neighbors came to us just prior to the demolition and understandably were quite upset that we hadn't done anything, that we dropped the ball somehow. And believe me, I felt pretty bad about it too, as did my fellow commissioners, but there wasn't a lot we could do. And frankly, it was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back that said, we got to do something here. We're really missing the boat here. So this is what we get now in the place of where that lovely house was. And I'm not going to make a commentary on taste, because we all have our own particular taste about houses, but it completely changes the character of this neighborhood. And this is what's happening all over town. Here's another case, 82 Arlington Street at the corner of High Street. A house built about 1920. Again, it had the misfortune of being an unprotected property on a large lot, and it was demolished in February and is being replaced by 2 large houses, changing the character of the neighborhood, irreparably, I should say. So this is a common problem that's going on in the metropolitan Boston area that, again, Mr. Grinsbach referred to. And so how do other towns and cities address this problem? Similarly, 123 Massachusetts municipalities have some form of demolition delay bylaw. What's different, though, is how they approach the question of what properties need to be, or how they protect given properties. How do you define the properties that are to be protected? And so starting last fall, the Historical Commission, all members of the Historical Commission undertook quite a bit of work, and we did a lot of deep research into what other towns did. We looked at 25 other Massachusetts municipalities that are mostly in eastern Massachusetts, many of which are very similar to Massachusetts, or to Winchester, and we found that there's a range of approaches to this. Some towns and cities use a rolling date. So for instance, Sturbridge, Newton, Framingham, and Cambridge, Boston use a 50-year rolling date, which means that a house that this year was built in 1962 is protected. Next year it'll be 1963, et cetera. Tonight, as we speak, Belmont's town meeting is considering this for a 50-year rolling date. Other towns use a fixed date, such as what we've decided on and we're recommending to town meeting. The reason why we chose a fixed date is we felt it was easier to administer, and it made a lot more sense for a number of reasons. And if you read our FAQ that's included in your handout, we explain it at quite some length, and I'm not going to go into it right now. Still, other towns like Concord and Arlington have substantial historic districts, and so any property within those historic districts come under the rule of the Historical Commission for demolition delay applications. And lastly, Lexington, Acton, Wakefield, and Watertown.
Excuse me, sir, your time has expired.
May I have 5 more minutes, please?
It's moved and second. The speaker's time be extended 5 more minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As I was saying, those towns have no date parameters whatsoever, so any demolition permit application goes before the Historical Commission. I don't think I could get that one through here. So what is going to be the effect of this bylaw should you choose to accept it tonight? We estimate, and I emphasize the word estimate because it's hard to pin down an exact number because we're using assessor's property list, but we estimate that it would add approximately 2,663 properties. And I hasten to add that includes the property of every single member of the Historical Commission. We walk the talk. That would represent about 32% of all property in Winchester. Combine that with the current list of 702 properties, we're under 42% of all properties covered under this bylaw. Here are a few sample properties that you may recognize in your own precinct. The 1st and 2nd precinct, 3rd and 4th, 5th and 6th. That house at the bottom is mine. 7th and 8th. So perhaps you might be wondering, well, geez, you're going to expand this list, so how does this work? What can we expect? I think, frankly, that if you take a quick look at how the bylaw has been administered in the last decade, it would give you a good flavor of what we can expect in the years to come. Since 2000, the Historical Commission has received 241 demolition permit applications. Of those, 33 led to a hearing. In other words, about 14%. Now, of those 33 hearings, 14 demolition permits were issued outright by the Commission. That means 19 delays were imposed. So what did that mean? We saved 6 properties. We convinced the owners to do something else, to restore, to move, or what have you. And I was going to say 3 properties were moved. 1 was sold. 3 are still in delay, one of which we're in negotiations right now. We just had a hearing last Monday night. We're hoping to save that house too. and 6 were ultimately demolished at the expiration of the 12-month delay. So you see it does in fact happen, much to our chagrin, but that's the way the law is written. I want to show you 4 sample houses that the Historic Commission helped save, thanks in part to the demolition delay bylaw. 26 Mystic Valley Parkway, right across the street from the Wedgmere train station at the corner of Lakeview. The Pansy Patch House, which is now the house that sits out front of Greystone. We actually, that's across the street from Mahoney's. We actually got the builder to save the house, to move it, and to renovate it, and he's actually very happy with it. He's happy with the way it turned out. 12 Mason Street at the corner of Highland and Mason, and then 4 Norwood just off Church Street. I'd like to conclude with a hope that you'll support this. I think it's really a choice between, as Lance said so well, it's what do we want this town to be? What do we want it to continue to be? We recognize that change happens. We recognize that it's going to continue to happen. We'd like to hang on to the parts of Winchester that make it unique, and we think that this bylaw will go far in that regard. And I welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you very much. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow town meeting members. You know, this is very interesting. The justification for regulation of private property, typically we hear with respect to zoning laws, is to protect public health and safety. Now, this bylaw has nothing to do with public health and safety. In effect, what this does is tell us that the town has an interest in your property, regardless of what you think of it, because it has a right to try to preserve the past. You know, frankly, that's an alien concept in my mind, and one that it's bad enough that it currently affects some 700 properties, but the Historic Commission wants us to extend this, and I will say it's not a permanent taking, but it's certainly a temporary taking of private property to another almost 2,700 properties, who the landowners who may have a reason they want to demolish the property will find that they're held up for as long as a year. And I would submit to you that time is money. So what we're in effect doing is taking the landowner's rights to use his own property or her own property as they so desire, and subject that to the whim of the town's Historic Commission, because the Historic Commission thinks it has value. And they're not even restricting this to properties that have some identifiable historic significance, which the National Register properties are recognized as having some historic significance, but just to any property that was built during or before 1945, which includes another 2,700 properties. You know, I frankly, this is an alien concept to me, and it's mind-boggling that the town would have the arrogance to impose upon property owners this kind of a restriction. You know, I really, it's unfathomable to me how the town thinks that it has a right to control, even for a one-year period, somebody's own property. My home is my castle. I'm not affected by this bylaw. I live in a relatively new property, but I am concerned for the rights of property owners. And time is money, and that's what in effect, you're taking away a year's worth of somebody's life to allow the town to restrict demolition of a property that may have, landowners have good reason to want to demolish. And I would point out to you, the chairman of the Historic Commission pointed out that this is a beautiful house. Beautiful in what? In the estimate, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know, the fact that the town has an interest, frankly, in seeing new properties developed. those big houses that for some reason are thought to be terrible things bring new revenue to this town. This town badly needs new revenue. And if we build newer and better houses, we're renewing the housing stock, and we're frankly enhancing the town's revenues. So frankly, it does not make any sense to me, and I ask you to vote against this proposal.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Crandall. Yeah, here comes a mic right behind you.
Okay, the first question is this motion in order, please?
In my opinion, the motion is in order.
And is this properly served to the properties that are affected?
What do you mean by that? You mean, did they notify everybody that...
Proper notice to the parties that are affected by this.
Okay. Mr. Welsh? The question is with the property owners, and I put my words in there, I think what the lady is saying, she means the property owners who own properties that were built prior to 45. Have they been properly noticed?
Yeah. The notice is proper, but that does not mean that every owner of a property was built before or during 1945 was notified. The notice is proper under the town's bylaws and under Chapter 40, Section 8D.
Okay, follow up, Mrs. Crandall.
Mr. Moderator, respective boards, committees, town meeting members, I respectfully disagree with the proponents of this article. However well-intentioned the idea, it is a stripping away of property rights without proper notification. The history of this goes back to 1995, when the original bylaw was approved, and that included an ability to opt out of this bylaw. It's been amended twice since then, and it's been extended from 3 months to 6 months to 12 months. As it originally started, 702 properties were ones that probably we might all agree on. Since then, though, with this increase, it's threefold, and with all properties built before 1945, on or before 1945, and it stretches across town. This pertains to buildings, and the definition, anything having a roof to form a shelter for a person, property, or animals. In other words, houses, garages, buildings. And the definition of a significant building means any building listed or a portion thereof. It grants broad-reaching powers and it has a completely subjective interpretation. The Commission may choose not to have the bylaw affect all properties, but as stated from the original bylaw, this and the amendments, this applies to anything that has character, interest, or value as a part of a development or heritage. Exemplifies the cultural, political, economic, and social historic heritage of a community. Very broad-reaching, portrays the environment of a group or people. Broad-reaching, contains the elements of architectural design, detail, materials. Very broad-reaching. Is part or related to a square, park, or other distinctive area. Again, broad-reaching. Represents an established or familiar visual feature of a neighborhood, district, or street. Again, these are very broad-reaching terms. I understand the frustration that's created this proposal, and as cited in a couple of the buildings shown, that is due in a large part to the ever-increasing value of land. And it so happens that a couple of those shown had sufficient area with very little control to do anything. Nobody could stop having the land divided. However, this proposal is applying a broad, encompassing reach across the town, adding many more properties, many smaller properties, a total of 2,663 at this time. It is taking away property rights without giving proper notice and without an ability to opt out of this list. You have to ask, are these people, these 2,663 people, less deserving of proper notification and representation? The answer has to be no. This is too broad, too expansive, without proper notification, and without affording property owners the ability to opt out. I encourage a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Natali was next, and then Mr. Marmon.
Yes, I attended the town manager's briefing about a month ago on the warrant articles, and this was this particular article was summarized by a member of the Historical Commission, who used the unfortunate term that if this article passed, that they would rope in, it was his word, 2,700 homes. I think it's a big disadvantage to own one of these so-called protected houses. I never met the owners of Warren Street, but I absolutely sympathize with them. And I can well imagine a scenario something like this where you have an elderly couple living in a house which is much too big for them. It's probably uninsulated, maybe has only one zone, and it's very expensive to heat. The kids have long left, and there are probably several rooms that they never go into anymore, and the taxes with biennial override increases they can't afford anymore. So naturally, they want to move out probably to a warmer climate and a nice condo somewhere and sell their house. But they can't sell the house because it really is a derelict, and nobody in their right mind would buy it. So the only thing left for them to do with the land, it's all about the land, which is very valuable, as Mrs. Crandall pointed out. They want to demolish the house and sell the land, but the Historical Commission likes the house the way it is and wants to force the owners to stay in this house they don't want to live in, and force them to pay for the heat, and force them to pay for the taxes. Luckily for the owners, all this played out before tonight's debate on this article, because tomorrow it may be an entirely different story. This could be any of us a few years from now, 80 or 85 years old, with an older house in lousy condition, which we can't afford, and we'd like to demolish and sell the land. But by that time, instead of a year waiting period, you're probably going to have a 2-year waiting period. And if you're 80 or 85 years old, a year or two is it's a lifetime, and your lifetime is very short. I'm very against this article, and I think the Historical Commission already has too much power, and I don't want to give them any more. I'm a property rights person, and I urge a no vote on this.
Thank you, Mr. Marmon. Then Mr. Johnson.
My name's Doug Marmon. I'm here to report that the Board of Selectmen has voted in favor of these motions by a majority of 3-1 with one absent. Winchester is noted for its beautiful neighborhoods, particularly those built in the latter half of the 19th century and the first half of the 20th century. The beauty and character of these neighborhoods can be damaged by the loss of historic homes. It is reasonable to offer some protection against this sort of abuse. This bylaw certainly puts limits on the property owners on what they may do, or more precisely on how quickly they may do it. And this delay might cause inconvenience and economic loss to the owner. But this loss must be balanced against the economic and cultural loss to the other owners in the neighborhood and to all the citizens who pass by that neighborhood and go through it, if the fabric of that neighborhood has been damaged by this demolition. Each request for demolition represents a unique case, and each case deserves some review, some attempt to strike a balance between these opposing interests. This bylaw provides that review. Let me mention just 3 things that limit what this review, how strong it is, and that is the bylaw applies only to the most radical and irreversible of property changes of a demolition. Two, the Historical Commission has established clear rules for its deliberations and has been sensitive in its past decisions. And three, this bylaw can do no more than delay. It does not take the property owner has the final decision. Again, the board recommends favorable action.
Mr. Johnson was next, and then Mr. Bataro, was it? Yep.
Good evening. I'm the one opposed to it. And I rise in opposition tonight opposed to Articles 2 and 3 because I believe I'm right. And I do not believe that Articles 2 and 3 are fair to approximately 2,000 property owners. The true number is actually unknown, but it's in that area. I would like to take a few minutes to summarize the brief history of the original demolition bylaw. Originally, for a piece of property to qualify for the demolition bylaw, it had to be in the National Register and the Massachusetts Historical List. Many pieces of property applied. In order to apply for the register, the property owner had to make a request, had their name considered, had their property professionally evaluated for some historical importance. Of that, 702 properties were put on the Winchester's historical list. Then, the town of Winchester passed the demolition bylaw. Of these 702 property, homeowners were offered an opt-out clause, which means if they wish not to participate in the demolition bylaw, they had the opportunity to opt out and have their house removed from the demolition bylaw. Tonight, we were asked to consider putting on about 2,000, maybe it's 2,500. We really don't know because there is no list. But we are asked to put approximately 2,000 homes on this list that were built prior to 1945. The properties would have up to a 1-year delay. It is true that the Historical Commission does do a diligent job in evaluating the property, but your property, if you're out there, and I ask you how many people have a house built before 1945? Did you know your name was on the list? Do you know you were considered prior to town meeting? Yes. Okay, good, because a lot of people didn't. These people that didn't are property owners who live out of town. They're business owners who own property but live out of town. But we'll go on later. Of the 702 houses, the property owners had the opt-out clause. Tonight, we are asked to consider putting on about 2,000 additional homes with no opt-out clause. That's the problem. These people have no chance, no say to be on a list or not on a list. The real question is that fair? It's legal, I'm told, but is it really fair? Is it fair? If you're a homeowner who lives out of town, you don't know it. You've been served by mail to registered residents, not homeowners. If you're a business person who lives out of town, you won't serve notice. If you're someone who, like what I hope to do someday, maybe take some of the summer or winter off and I move down to another state for a month or two, I may not notice it. But it is not right. There is no proper notice. There are no opt-out clauses. These owners should have the right, just like the right was offered to the original people who elected to put their house on the historical register. They should have the right to have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want my house on this list. Just like the original bylaw. Now, we can question what is a significant building? Is this going to be a public process? And what are the true financial impacts to these 2,000 plus homes? I don't know what the true impact is. I don't know what a significant building is. I'm not quite sure I understand the public process. I got an idea, but I'm not quite sure. For these and many other questions, I'm asking you to indefinitely postpone this article. If this article is meant to be, bring it back with a proper notification period, a proper opt-out, and a proper involvement of all people that the houses are involved with. There's 2,000 plus people. They should be given notice, either written notice, just like in the past, and they should have the opportunity to speak for themselves. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Johnson. Question, did you just make a motion?
No, Mr. Chairman, I was going to make a motion to amend, but after talking with the...
No, I thought you said that you moved for indefinite postponement.
I do move for indefinite postponement.
Okay, is that seconded? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that further consideration of this article be indefinitely postponed. For new town meeting members, that's a standard allowed motion on any motion that's pending. And so we have to vote on that. The debate will continue. We don't have to vote right away. There's a gentleman over here trying to get my attention. Yes, sir.
I am Jack Richard, Precinct 1. I listened carefully to Mr. Marmon.
Can you speak into the mic?
Is it on? Okay.
Yeah.
I listened very carefully to Mr. Marmon. I've been here many years and always find him to be a voice of reason. I agree with your approach. That is, it's a question of balance. I don't, however, agree with your conclusion. It really does come down to balance. How much balance do we want to put on property rights? I did hear during the initial presentation more than once words to the effect of, unfortunately for the house, or this property is unprotected. We're not here to protect property. We're here to protect people and their rights. Our historical legacy, of which I am very interested in and I would guard very zealously, is not about 2x4s, roof lines, windows, gables. Our historical legacy is freedom. The freedom to make our own windows, gables, and roof lines as we see fit. This beautiful town that you all want to protect was built without any zoning laws whatsoever. Those folks lived in a community, and a community trusts their neighbors to make their own decisions in their own best interests. That's a community. That's how freedom works. If anyone in this town wants to sign up for this list, I assume we could set up a voluntary list. And a lot of good people might do that. It doesn't affect my house. My house is relatively new, relatively modest. It's not terribly important in any way. But the freedom of other people to have their property as they want it or not as they want it is something we should all be very, very zealously guarding of. It's a choice between basically convincing people, which is a hard slog. It's difficult, I know, but that's the way it's supposed to go. You can either choose between convincing or coercion. I am not here to tell someone who's not here or whose house I don't own what they can and cannot do with their house. Aside from safety, things like that, the aesthetics are just frankly none of my business. I love architecture. I've built houses. I walk around this town, I see a lot of houses that I see as architectural mistakes. You've got door columns on Corinthian, door caps on Corinthian columns, whatever. But to me, they're all beautiful because those are the choices those people made in their dream house. Change it, don't change it, that's up to you. It's just not up to me. So again, the question is, why do we need to force people in? Why don't we just allow people, if they want to do this, to do it, and if they choose not to choose not to? Isn't that more respecting of our neighbors and their choices? Houses don't have feelings or rights. Boards and nails and windows don't have feelings or rights. People do. And our job, as the job of every legislature, is to protect the liberty and the freedom of those people. And rather than chip it away, let's not hand them nice windows. Let's hand them the freedom that was given us, and no less. So for that reason, I would oppose this motion.
Thank you very much. Mr. Swan. Oh, point of information. Yes, sir, Mr. White.
The motion postponed is on what article?
Article 2, I believe. That's the one we're discussing, and that's the only one pending. So he's moved and seconded that Article 2 be indefinitely postponed. Okay?
Yes, I'm Bill Swanton, Precinct 7. I happen to live in one of the protected houses currently. I'm very happy for that because I would not like to see a subsequent owner tear it down on me. I want to see that house stay there because I put a lot of work into it, and I want to see another set of families live in it after we do. I think, one of the things that's really important here is, are we a community or are we a bunch of landowners who have the same zip code? Think about that. Everything that you do to your house, everything any property owner does to their house affects all their neighbors. This is basically what this article's about. We're talking about homeowners here, right? Was it a homeowner who tore down that house? According to the paper I've read, people sold it to somebody who thought they were going to live in it. The developer then put in the demolition request. Okay? That was someone who's making a quick buck out of our community and wasn't helping our community. Okay? Maybe the real estate agents like it, maybe the builders like it, they can make a buck, they can turn the property over. That's great, but it's hurting our community. And so I really hope you will all vote against the motion to indefinitely postpone and vote for Article 2 and 3. Thank you.
Gentleman in the orange shirt, and then Mr. Grenzebach.
Yeah, I don't have a particularly strong opinion about whether the community or people have the rights here or there. It's just that this seems to be the wrong razor that we're using. We're saying, okay, if you're old, don't tear it down. And I think that's a problem. I don't think that just because it was built before 1945, it has particularly any strong reason to remain. In fact, I can think of a lot of good reasons why some of the stock before 1945, and especially all of the stock from 1948 to 1967 should go. But so I think what we need is a better.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry. What we need is a better rule. I don't mind saying that we need to protect a lot of the housing stock. This, however, is just a big hammer to do a job that I think needs to be done more surgically.
Thank you. Mr. Grenzebach.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing to report that the Planning Board voted unanimously 5-0 to support this article. I would keep in mind two things as you discuss this. First, there is a flip side to the question of do we take private property by putting a restriction like this on. The flip side is the reason that Winchester adopted zoning controls in the early 1900s, has maintained them for over 100 years and improved them, which is by doing that, you protect the value of the property, of your own property, by having the community set the rules of the game on what happens in the neighborhood and what happens next to you. You preserve and maintain the value of your house as well. What you're looking at here is a very simple system that winnows down possibilities to a few houses in the end that need to be preserved and negotiates with the developer or the owner to make those houses preserved. That may be of particularly value to your neighborhood. Be very careful before you throw away a tool that gives you the right to preserve your value in your property as well. Okay? The other point Mr. Swanton also made, of the many properties that come before us to be reviewed on their way to the Historic Commission, most of them are not being torn down and redeveloped by their owners. They're being torn down and developed by developers. Okay? This is entirely a financial process, and the smarter ones simply avoid it by coming in a year early, filing the paper, and simply ignoring the process. But it does give us the opportunity as a town to say, how much change do you want to tolerate, how fast, and are you thinking about the effects on your property value? So this is something to think about very carefully before you say it's useless or it seizes property values. It is a device, very much like zoning, that protects your property values, because the value of this town is determined by its location, the schools, and the perceived quality of its neighborhoods. You can go out and find houses very similar to anyone in Winchester in another community, have a much lower value. Same house, same number of kitchens, same number of bathrooms, same number of garages. The reason the value is lower is people perceive that the neighborhood is not as desirable and is not as attractive. So be very careful when you say this is not good for me and it's seizing my property values. The Planning Board really fully supports and urges your approval of this measure. Thank you.
Gentleman right over here, sir.
I think, unfortunately, you just refuted your own argument with the last statement. People who are going to move to town because they love historic houses are not going to tear down historic houses. Developers who are going to move to a town and tear down a large house and subdivide the lot are going to build into their business model a 12-month delay and simply tear the house down a month or 12 months later. You can extend it out further, but essentially it becomes a cash flow issue for them with a very high return in a town like Winchester on the other end. It may be more apt to consider something such as historic districts, architectural codes in terms of what can go on that lot afterwards, what it has to look like in terms of materials and appearance. But the idea that a persistent developer with a extremely high profit motive to take that house is simply going to wait you out. So I'm not sure that this is going to necessarily have the intended effect except to deprive those residents who may need that money out of that property sooner than 12 months by recognizing the large gain and otherwise playing right into developers' hands.
Are you ready for the question, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, before we do that, let me name some tellers here, just in case the voice vote is close. Mr. Leland, would you be a teller? Mr. Moore? Mr. Robert Beatty, would you be a teller? And Mr. Johnson? And Mr. Frizel. Would you stand and raise your right hands? Do you faithfully agree to perform the duties as tellers to this town meeting? So help you God. Thank you very much. Just 1 second, sir. Could I ask the people, the way we count, Mr. Leland will be counting that section in the Finance Committee. Mr. Frizel will be counting, he will be counting Mr. Johnson. I named one too many.
I don't think Mr. Beatty's here, so
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, Bob, would you be so kind? You'll count this section, you count yours, and you count the... And then the people in this middle section, would you go left or right? So we have a nice, clean line up the middle. You learn if you sit here, you never sit right in the middle of the middle section. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is we have a motion for indefinite postponement of Article 2. And for new town meeting members, if that motion passes, this motion is dead. If it doesn't pass, then we continue and eventually vote on the text of Article 2. So, Mr. Natali. We are. Nobody has chosen to speak on Article 3, but that's okay. Unless you want to speak now on Article. Pardon? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's possible to defeat one, pass two, and vice versa. Okay, the question comes on the motion on Article 2. It's moved and seconded that the article be indefinitely postponed. All those in favor, please say aye. He's interrupting. Sit down. Come on. Can't jump up at the last minute. You've been staring right at me. It's moved and seconded that the motion be indefinitely postponed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Chair is in doubt. The tellers will, all those in favor for indefinitely postponing, please stand, and the tellers will count. Seventeen.
24.
24. 37. 7. All those opposed, please rise. $14. Please be quiet, ladies and gentlemen. 25. 16. 25. 85 having voted in the affirmative, 80 in the negative, the motion passes and it's indefinitely postponed. Which brings us to Article 3, to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 14, Section 3, Demolition of Historic Buildings, Code of the Bylaws, and it reads as is indicated in there. Do you wish to speak, sir? on Article 3? John, did you wish to speak on 3? I'm sorry? We'll get it. Would you wish to speak on Article 3 now?
I believe that I covered Article 3 sufficiently in my previous presentation. For the most part, it stands on its own, quite apart from Article 2. I think it merits a yes vote.
Okay, the lady up back. Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, members of the town meeting. My name is Susan Keats. I'm a former town meeting member, a former historical commission president, historical society president, and I'm also the former Winchester town archivist from 1979 to 1982. I owe my career to the town of Winchester. I was hired to be the second archivist of the town, hired by the town. It was a part-time position in 1979 and part of the library staff. Little did I realize, but the position also came with a part-time grant-funded project at that time to do an inventory of historical assets of the entire town. This work had been started, and it was my task to finish the job within a year and within budget. And the budget was a $20,000 grant, which was funded by the Mass Historical Commission. With the help of 20 volunteers and 2 student interns, we managed to inventory a total of 2,300 buildings in this town. They were listed on the 1916 Sanborn Atlas, which was an insurance atlas of the town. Cities and towns at the time had these maps made for insurance liability purposes because many of the buildings, as you can imagine, were wood at the time and fire was common. So many of the towns had these. We did this project on time and within budget. In fact, we did such a good job that the state, which was supposed to accept the 2,300 forms, said to us, we can't possibly take these 2,300 forms, mainly because that was too much paper for them. Nothing at that point was electronic. They told us to go back and to give a more realistic number to them so that they could file them appropriately at the town level. What we did was to look at the town again, and they suggested more like 1,600 forms to go to the state. Well, we ended up doing that. We went street by street, identifying the most outstanding structures, taking into account significant architects, residents, earliest buildings, neighborhoods, etc. And then we went to work to put some of these significant buildings on the National Register, such as the original Winchester Savings Bank, which is located right next to the fire station. We also put the Sanborn House, the Wright Lock Farmhouse on the National Register, the Vincent Owen School House, and the Johnson Thompson House, which is located on High Street, and the date of that house goes back to the 18th century. Until we did this building survey in 1979, the town was described as a colonial town. That's the way people looked at it. The survey changed that definition to 19th century railroad community from Boston, and of course it's also the reason why most of us have settled here. Before long, I began to notice ads for houses for sale after this survey was done. The Brackett House, the Hovey House, or descriptions of styles, eras, and special features to those architectural masterpieces that were definitely attracting more people to this town. Sure, there were schools and easy access to Boston, but let's face it, Boston or Winchester is a truly beautiful community, especially in the springtime. Now, it's been 30 years since that first building survey was accomplished, and we captured, remember, 2,300 buildings that at that time were still existing in 1979, but had been listed on that 1916 atlas. It missed the 20th century developments that are representative of the economy, the lifestyles, lives after the wars, buildings, architectural styles, and growing prosperity, the decline and the changes in the community. It's time for us to realize that many of the buildings from the 1940s and the 1950s are just as important as the 1840s and the 1850s. We might not have passed this particular article tonight, Article 2, but it indeed is time for us to begin to think about how we want to look at this town in the future. I think what is important is that we look at Article 3 and pass this article, which is going to change the original demolition delay bylaw. And indeed, I was standing up here in 1995 before you. And also to give the appropriate departments some teeth to protect the town's assets, which of course is what we're so involved with today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further on the question? The gentleman way up back.
My name is Ginny Reeder. I'm Precinct 5. I want to share I had a lot of issues with Article 2, but since it's been indefinitely postponed, these are things other people haven't mentioned that I think also are applicable to Article 3.
Well, I can't hear you. You'll have to...
Okay. I just want to share a couple things about this Article 3 that hasn't really been mentioned as part of Article 2, the concerns about Article 2. The first problem I have is that the Historic Commission isn't elected, and it's not as much of an issue now that Article 2 has been indefinitely postponed, but I feel that we are we're asking some people to make some subjective decisions. Again, because Article 2 is postponed, it's not as big a deal, but I do think that I would like to know how the Historic Commission decides what is historically significant, what is not. I think that's very subjective. I am on the Housing Partnership Board. I'm much more concerned about small houses that probably a lot of people would say is not historically significant. I think those are the types of homes that should be preserved. So I just would like to see if ultimately when this comes back in front of us, if it does, which I hope it does, that perhaps the Historic Commission, if they're going to do something like this, then they should be an elected body so that they can campaign, they can explain their feelings about what makes a home historically significant or not, and just like with the planning board, we can decide whether we support their view of what Winchester should look like in the future. And I guess the other comment I'll make that's probably more towards Article 3, I just feel that we're kind of going about this the wrong way. People have talked about other ways that they have an issue with it. I think our problem is mansionization, and I think that as a community, we need to take a long, hard look about how much of, how big the houses can get and how much of a lot can be covered and things like that, and how many houses can be crammed into a lot. I feel like we're sort of approaching this from the back doorway, but ultimately we're saying the same thing, which is it changes the character of the neighborhood, etc. There are a lot of good reasons to tear down old houses because they're not efficient and a lot of other things. And I just think that instead of latching on to a date or saying something's historically significant or not, perhaps we should be looking at zoning in a different way and addressing the mansionization issue. The final thing I'll say is that my husband and I do not live in a historically significant house, and we've been living in it for 10 years, and we've for 10 years discussed all the things we'd like to do with it, including probably once every 6 months talking about tearing it down. And I just think that the people who live in these houses are going to have a much better sense of really what is necessary and important to making the house a more livable thing than any commission or any other body. So
Your
that's just...
Your time has expired. Do you wish more time? Okay. Further on the question, Mr. Frizzell, and then yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kyle Frizzell, Precinct 7. On Article 3, frankly, I don't know why we're taking this long on this article. It's not changing what we already have. I mean, we already have the existing 700 homes. In fact, what it's doing is actually adding some additional protections for those homes that are covered. Because currently under the bylaw, there is no explicit set of guidelines for the Historic Commission and the public and those who are covered to know what it is that will be important in the deliberations, whether or not to issue this permit. Now, it seems to me this is additional protections for those who are currently covered. We haven't expanded yet the universe of those who are covered. So, if anything, this is a plus side, it would seem, for the homeowners and for the process itself. So I don't know why it seems to be troubling us, but if I'm wrong in that analysis, then someone should step forward and say, I've got it wrong. But it just seems to me this is a better process, an improvement to the existing process. So I encourage us to move on. We've got other things to get done tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Simpson.
Colin Simpson, Precinct 5. Yeah, what Mr. Frizzell was saying was exactly what my question was too. And so through you to the through you to the Town Council, can we make sure that Mr. Frizzell's assumptions are correct, that with the indefinite postponement of Article 2, that we are only talking about in Article 3 those 702 properties that were previously identified?
Yes, sir.
The technical legal answer to the question that you ask is you are correct. But there is in this article a little bit of confusion in Article 3 regarding, some of the criteria. And so the technical legal issue is you are correct, Mr. Frizzell is correct, but I fear that there's going to be some confusion created.
Yes, sir. He confused me.
Hi, I'm Bruce Hickey. I'm Vice Chairman of the Historic Commission. Article 3 should not be nearly as controversial as Article 2. The intention of the Historical Commission in much of what is in Article 3 is for transparency and clarification. What is in the bylaw now says that the commission if the commission determines the demolition of the significant building would be detrimental to the historical or architectural heritage or resources of the town, such building shall be considered a preferably preserved building, and then the demolition delay is enacted. What we have asked you to approve is criteria, which backs up those half dozen, 10 words, which I don't think are very clear, and I don't think when people come before us for a hearing, they truly understand where we are making a judgment. So that, in a nutshell, is the point of Article 3.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Gentleman over there. Yes, sir.
I would only say that I cannot imagine a single house in town that doesn't fit one of these characteristics. They're as broad as you could be. They're just a longer way of saying pretty much anything the commission would like to protect is protected. It has character, interest, or value, entirely subjective. It represents an established and familiar visual feature of the neighborhood. Well, I guess that applies to every house in town in someone's estimation. So I don't think this actually helps. This actually expands. And these might be good as guidelines to petitioners. I just don't think we have to clog up the town's bylaws with these kinds of things, which are entirely subjective. And just to rebut something that was said earlier, with all due respect, we all love our properties, and we hope that when we sell them, maybe the subsequent owners won't change them or knock them down. But this is not the way life works. We move on, things move on, change happens. The house built yesterday that you folks don't like, maybe that's next century's historical gem. Luckily, our ancestors didn't feel that way about the houses on their lots when they knocked those down to build these houses you all want to preserve. Again, this whole town that you want to save, the character of which was built without any zoning regulations whatsoever. In the original zoning regulations, if you had told those citizens that they were going to impinge on the aesthetic choices of their neighbors, they would never have passed them. These were for, this is why we need to change them now, I guess. I mean, these were for fire safety, building integrity, those sorts of issues. Nobody would have dreamed back then that you would be regulating or making someone live in a house they didn't find optimal for their uses. Life changes. Family situations change. Some of these big houses had multi-generational families in them. That's not so common anymore. You have to give future generations the flexibility to do what they want. And with all due respect, it's an exercise in hubris and a little bit of self-importance to think that what we think is important will be important forever. Once we're gone, we're gone. We're temporary stewards of this place. Let's do the best we can with it, and let's particularly protect our freedom while we do that. Thanks.
Further on the question? Seeing nobody, are you ready for the question? Yeah. Wait a minute, I see one lady. Yes, ma'am. Coming around. Oh, wait a minute. Would you rise so we can?
Sorry. One last quick question to the Historical Commission through you. Can we just hear one last time what this new language, what problems this new language solves that the old language doesn't?
Question for those that may not have heard it. He's asking the commission, what does this solve? What problem does this solve as opposed to what we have right now? Jack?
First of all, in section 3.1, it provides the Historical Commission with more information than we had in the past. Secondly, section 3.2, 3.3 enables either the chairperson or the vice chairperson to be the person who's responsible for getting the available information from the building department. At present, that falls on just the chairman. It allows us, for instance, if one of us is out of town and if the chair is out of town, then the vice chair can stand in his or her place. And then I think that Bruce really addressed section 3.6 quite adequately, and I can't add anything to what he said to improve on his statement.
You ready for the question, ladies and gentlemen? The question comes on the main motion, which is to approve the new text. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I'd say the no has it. Necessary number of voters having risen, we will do a count. That's one of our parliamentary rules, is someone challenges. So all in favor of the motion, please rise and the tellers will count. Nineteen. 26. 21. 35. All those opposed, please rise. Four. 10. 15. 29. 101 having voted in the affirmative, 58 in the negative. The motion on Article 3 passes. Thank you very much. Okay. That brings us to Article 4, the public shade trees. I got a visit before the town meeting from Betsy Krager, who's the head of that committee, and she wants to put a motion at this time, and it's moved and seconded, that Article 4 be postponed to a time certain, that time being after Article 30. There's some things that apparently between the board and of selectmen and the committee that they're going to try to rectify in that period. All those in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Then Article 5, to see if the town will vote to modify the provisions of the Town of Winchester Code of Bylaws, Chapter 2, Section 4 and 6, in order to allow electronic distribution. The motion is on page 35 of your book, ladies and gentlemen. What is the plan here? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian McCarthy. I appreciate the opportunity to speak real quickly on Article 5 on behalf of the Finance Committee. Article 5 is the motion for electronic distribution of committee reports. I looked around the room tonight. I see a lot of people with tablets. You can see the Finance Committee table has a lot of laptops. I see smartphones. Internet communication has changed the way we distribute information. We have access tonight to the school's internet.
Excuse me, are you going to make a motion first? You have to make a motion before you can talk. And we're waiting to hear whether this is the motion.
Okay, my apologies.
Is this the motion in the book?
I'd like to make a motion to postpone discussion on Article 5 to a time certain as being the first article of business on May 7th, because I'd like to make some minor tweaks to the language and not the spirit of the article.
Okay, there's a motion, and it's moved that we postpone further consideration of this until the first order of business on May 7th. That is that will be the next next town meeting session, and where we were going to start with the budget, but now we're going to start with this, if it passes. Further on the discussion, if you want to make any comments on that, sir, now that you got the motion.
Thank you very much, sir. I'd just like to say that we really think it's a good thing for the town. We'd like to make some minor tweaks, again, not to change the spirit, but to make sure that it's in proper order. That's it.
Okay. The question now comes on the motion to postpone to a time certain, that time being the first order of business on May 7th.
Correct.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. That brings us to Article 6. To request the Winchester Town Meeting to approve the following resolution to call upon the United States Congress to pass and send to the states for ratification a constitutional amendment to overturn the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission to restore democracy to the people. And
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Verdicchio from Precinct 1. My fellow town meeting members, the United States...
Can you speak into the mic a little bit?
The United States Constitution...
They're not hearing you up back.
I'm sorry. The United States...
There you go.
Okay. The United States Constitution and Bill of Rights begins with the phrase, "We the people," and ends in the 10th Amendment. It ends in the 10th Amendment, declaring that any powers not expressly covered in the Constitution are reserved to the people. People are born, live mortal lives during which we breathe air, eat food, need medicine, raise children, pay taxes, vote, grow old, and die. Corporations are different. Corporations exist because state legislatures have enacted laws creating them. A corporation comes into existence when paperwork is filed in a government office. It has no corporeal body, no morals, enjoys a perpetual existence and limited liability, can move its citizenship offshore and pay no taxes, but a corporation cannot vote, cannot serve in public office. If you're wondering how 5 justices of the Supreme Court came to the conclusion that a corporation and a person really are the same, well, under the First Amendment, here it is. It took them 80 pages. And they came to the conclusion that corporations do have a First Amendment right to spend unlimited amounts in campaigns. And here, weighing in at 90 pages, is the dissenting opinion, which very patiently and clearly refutes pretty much every conclusion that the majority drew. Legal scholars and a bipartisan group of 50 law professors and attorneys general, in a letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee right after Citizens United was handed down, criticized it as a radical departure from constitutional law. So what does this have to do with Winchester Town Meeting? Why is it even on the warrant, inviting controversy that could impair our ability to discuss and decide the real-world local issues that are before us? Well, because all of us are elected. The Board of Selectmen, School Committee, Planning Board, all of us, all elected. Elections are the fundamental mechanism by which we, the people, give our consent to have other people represent us and govern us. The legitimacy of government at all levels comes from the consent of the governed. As a constitutional decision, Citizens United threatens the integrity of elections and effective self-government at all levels. And 2 years out from Citizens United, we are seeing torrents of money in elections. First, in the most expensive midterm election in history in 2010, and this year we're seeing how large corporations and wealthy individuals channeling money through super PAC corporations can outspend, out-advertise, and drown out individual citizens. The question is, what do these spenders expect in return? What makes the corporation so effective as an economic actor, the ability to aggregate and mobilize resources under the direction of a small number of management people, is exactly what makes it dangerous in the political context. Vast general treasury funds, very few people. A for-profit corporation exists to make profit. Management has the legally enforceable duty to make as much profit as possible, to maximize profits every single year. So to keep operating costs down, a corporation works to shift costs or externalize them as much as it can and pay as little in taxes as it can. That's what it wants government to do, keep regulation and taxation at a minimum. Congress and state legislatures, including Massachusetts, have been making laws to regulate and restrict the role of corporations in electoral politics for a century. The McCain-Feingold Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act was carefully drafted, thoroughly debated by Congress to balance the free speech rights of all in political campaigns against the need to protect fairness, to maintain access, to prevent anyone from monopolizing the debate, and to prevent corruption. McCain-Feingold leaves avenues open to corporations to participate in politics and does not touch the First Amendment rights of individuals. But in Citizens United, the judicial branch made an abrupt shift in interpreting the Constitution and just tore a hole in campaign finance regulation, not only at the federal level, because it's the Constitution, but at the state and local level as well. Citizens United threatens the integrity of elections and effective self-government at all levels, despite what the Massachusetts laws are. So imagine another national real estate development company similar to Avalon Bay with a large new project in Winchester. That company could spend as much as it wanted to influence elections, for people to the planning board, for people to the Board of Selectmen, or to influence a ballot question, an override question. Or imagine a casino owner or a casino developer coming into a small town in Massachusetts. In fact, the influence of deep-pocketed special interests at the state level already impacts Winchester. The Board of Selectmen has been discussing how spending more than $700,000 a year to dispose of the town's solid waste is a burden on our budget, and how to get more of us to do more recycling. Well, plastic bottles, subject to the 5-cent deposit, are recycled at an 80% rate. But not all bottles are covered by that deposit, and the ones that aren't covered are recycled at only a 20% rate. A bill to update and expand the bottle law has been pending on Beacon Hill for over a decade. Small businesses, especially on the Cape, are in favor of it. According to polls, 77% of the public supports that. It would certainly help Winchester and other towns save money, not to mention that it would help the environment. Who benefits from sticking with the old law? Well, this bottle was on, I got this in the cafeteria. It doesn't have a Massachusetts deposit on it, and it says, produced for the Coca-Cola Company, Atlanta, Georgia. Coca-Cola recently announced its first quarter earnings of over $2 billion. Again, why is this a matter for Winchester Town Meeting? What can we realistically do about it? Well, we can speak out. We can pass this resolution and take a stand. All the resolution does is call for a constitutional amendment, which is not a small matter, but it's something that we have to start at some point. It takes a long time to do. The New England Town Meeting is a grassroots democratic institution older than the Constitution. It's the model for Republican self-government. All we're asking to do is to call on our elected representatives to clarify that corporations are not people and corporate spending is not speech. To clarify that Congress and our elected state legislature can regulate corporations in the public interest. There is widespread support for reversing Citizens United and fixing campaign finance. Unless the Supreme Court reverses itself in another decision, the only way to do this is through a constitutional amendment. Amending the Constitution is not something to be undertaken lightly, but we the people have done so over the years to protect the equality or to reverse Supreme Court decisions. For example, the 19th Amendment granted women the right to vote, reversing an earlier Supreme Court decision. The 24th Amendment in 1962 ended state poll taxes, and the 26th Amendment, ratified in 1971, made the voting age 18. As I said, if you poll regular voters, there's wide support for overruling Citizens United. 11 attorneys general support the idea of a constitutional amendment. And all we're asking to do is put Winchester on the list to join with many communities that have passed resolutions, many communities in Massachusetts. And resolutions are pending in many other cities and towns. I believe Arlington is actually starting their town meeting tonight. I ask you, if we at the grassroots level don't begin to speak out about this, who really will? Over 100 residents signed the petition to put this article on the warrant on their behalf, and just as a citizen myself, I ask you to please vote in favor of Article 6 and adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further on the question, Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, fellow town meeting members. I rise to oppose this seemingly well-meaning proposal. And first of all, for the record, this has no business before the Winchester Town Meeting. We have no jurisdiction over campaign finance laws, so it doesn't belong before us, number one. However, to go to the merits of the proposal, a lot of misinformation has surrounded the Citizens United decision. We've been told that it allows corporations to contribute to candidates for political office. That is absolutely untrue. It only affects a very recent law, the 2002 McCain-Feingold campaign finance law. It's not a long-standing policy. And furthermore, corporations, what are corporations? They're collections of people. And the courts have long recognized corporations as persons. This is not some radical new concept that has suddenly struck the Supreme Court. It is long recognized in legal theory that corporations are in fact persons and they are collections of people. We join together for economic purposes as individuals when we form corporations. So corporations represent important economic interests and they have a right to be heard. And there are, as a matter of fact, there was a Massachusetts decision of the Supreme Court that upheld the right back in the I believe it was in the 1970s, upheld the right of corporations to be heard on initiative petitions, which obviously affect economic interests, and corporations have a right to be heard. And you know, frankly, it troubles me that we're being asked to restrict political speech. The First Amendment was designed to encourage and free political speech from regulation by government. I would also point out to you that unlike Massachusetts, approximately half of the states allow corporations to contribute directly to candidates for political office. And you know, we're told that having corporations contribute to candidates for political office is going to lead to corruption. Massachusetts has among the strictest campaign finance laws in the country. And frankly, I haven't noticed that we're any kind of an exemplar on the subject of political corruption, with the last 3 speakers of the Massachusetts House of Representatives bearing the title of felon. So I would remind you that there is no magic elixir that's going to stop political corruption, and certainly not by restricting freedom of speech. You know, frankly, I can remember, I'm old enough to remember when liberals used to believe in free and open discussion. I would like to give you, as a last word, the quotes of the Justice Louis Brandeis, who told us that experience should teach us to be most on our guard and to protect liberty when government's purposes are beneficial. The greatest danger to liberty lurk in insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding. If there be time to expose through discussion the falsehood and fallacies to avert the evil by the process of education, the remedy to be applied is more speech, not enforced silence, which is what this proposal is to shut off debate and frankly, to protect incumbents from political criticism. And that is why the Supreme Court did the correct thing in striking down that section of the McCain-Feingold law that allowed restrictions on corporate speech. Thank you, and I would hope we would oppose this foolish proposal.
Jennifer, then Cynthia. Yeah.
Jennifer Wilson for the Board of Selectmen. Fellow town meeting members, the board would like to express its respect for the efforts of the proponents of this article, which represents passion, organization, and commitment to a cause. However, the board has voted 4-0 with 1 abstention against recommending favorable action to town meeting. While the issue raised by the proponents is important, it's different from those which town meeting and the board regularly address in 2 ways. First, its relationship to the day-to-day matters of our community, and second, its political nature. At this spring town meeting, we are debating our budget, capital projects, zoning, and other matters that will directly impact our children's schools, our homes and neighborhoods, and the environment in which we live. The subject matter of this article is far less directly related to matters that we as governing representatives can control. That's not to say that the subject matter is not important, rather that there are numerous other issues that are also important, but similarly only indirectly touch local matters, ranging from federal tax policy to foreign conflict to immigration reform. Town meeting is packed with matters to consider of immediate urgency to our community, and we already sometimes struggle to find volunteers to fill vacant town meeting slots. The board believes that we should be circumspect regarding what types of matters should occupy the time of town meeting. This issue also differs from others that we regularly examine in that it's often perceived as a partisan matter. The culture of our local government is such that we're able to avoid the divisiveness that has become a trait of governing at the federal and the state level. Town meeting members disagree often vehemently, but hopefully we do so in a way that leaves party politics at the door and that allows us as neighbors to productively focus on the next issue at hand rather than on the great divide between us. We should not shy away from controversy when necessary. However, here we see a risk that partisan debate may diminish our ability to collectively reach the most informed decisions on matters that are squarely our responsibility. Considering this risk in light of our ability to impact the outcome that the proposal seeks, we as a board believe there are other forums that are better suited to express our individual or collective opinions on this important matter. We respectfully recommend a no vote on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia Latta.
Cynthia Latta from Precinct 6. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson, for that very well presented opinion of the board, and I concur with that. I would note, first of all, that any individual here who feels strongly about this issue can certainly contact his representative and his senator and make his wishes known. This does not seem to be something that is germane to a town meeting in Winchester. Secondly, I find it somewhat ironic that people who want to deny a collective of a corporation the right to speak as one want the town of Winchester to speak as one. I'm not sure why it would be all right for the town of Winchester to do it and not for IBM or Google or some other company to do it. Finally, I would quote to you from the U.S. Code, Section 1, which says, "The words person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. And if a corporation does not count as an individual, you cannot sue it, you cannot tax it, you cannot regulate it. If you want to sue GM, you've got to find 45 million individual stockholders and sue each of them individually. Trying to deny the ability of a corporation or a nonprofit or a union to speak as an entity really pulls the rug right out from under Amendment 1 and the freedom of speech. Thank you.
This gentleman here, and then Mr. Friesel, and I think we're ready to vote. Oh, okay.
I also think we're in the wrong forum, but I could never be as eloquent or as direct as the two ladies before me, so I'll skip right over that. Jennifer Wilson and the other lady did a great job explaining why it's in the wrong forum. I just want to give a little quick, very, very quick history. Citizens United is actually a right-wing advocacy group who in 2004 election went to the Federal Election Commission trying to ban Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11 as violative of McCain-Feingold, since it mentioned President Bush many times. That complaint was dismissed. So they learned their lesson, and 4 years later they produced a movie called Hillary, the movie. They were brought in front of the same board, and the board said that it was okay to ban that movie. That was the genesis of the suit. They thought, well, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. How come our speech is banned and theirs is not? The first problem with this, obviously, it exhibits a fundamental mistrust of your neighbor. Again, we're assuming that some of us we have all heard this corporate speech. Some of us somehow have not been affected by it. I guess we don't think our neighbors are bright enough to see through it also. The other thing is, in today's world, GE can speak all it wants, but given the technology we have, we're all an army of Davids. We can all get more speech out there in ways that were never possible before. So, again, it's a choice between convincing or coercion again. Essentially, it comes down to trusting your neighbor. Do you think they can handle or sort out the truth, or do you think that you should tell them what they can and cannot hear? And we decided a long time ago in this society, both the left and the right, and by the way, the American Civil Liberties Union filed an amicus brief in favor of Citizens United. They are the historically stalwart defenders of the First Amendment and the constitutional right of free speech on either side. They were on the side of Citizens United here. Again, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We're not here to limit speech. The remedy, as Mr. Conti said, is more speech. The other problem this run into is the Boston Globe is a for-profit corporation, as is the New York Times, as is ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Rupert Murdoch, all of them. Are we telling them within 30 days prior to an election they cannot editorialize, or do they get some special exemption here? It's naive. Advocacy groups such as Greenpeace, the NRA, would also be muzzled. This would be the first time we amended the Constitution to restrict rights, not to expand them. And most pernicious of all, we're not blocking speech. We're discriminating between speakers. And that's very different. It's not what they're saying we don't want to hear, but it's because of who they are when they say it. Wealthy individuals, whether you're George Soros on the left or you're the Koch brothers on the right, you'd still be free to spend as much money as you like. And it, again, as Mr. Conti said, this is an incumbent protection thing. So the problem, honestly, is not that there's too much money in politics, although that may be a problem. The problem is the world you've built where there's too much politics in money. That is, you have accumulated to the government power over all the little events in our lives, and they are so intrusive into the economic world that they've amassed all of this power. They have favors to sell. In big surprise, people want to buy them. The remedy here is more speech, more freedom, less of a connection between big government and big business, which is a horrible thing when it happens. And I would like to also I read Jason Lewis's, our representative's letter very closely that was in the Star. He's a great guy, a reasonable man. But he decried the use of money in politics, and he said that almost $88 million was spent in the 2012 elections. Well, Jason spent $87,000 in his election. He got 8,900 votes. He spent about $10 per vote. The national candidates don't spend nearly that much money. And also on his list of contributors, the SEIU was his biggest single contributor. They would be banned, I guess, but that's fine. Good to him. He has a viewpoint. I would defend to the death his right to have it. But it's a little hypocritical to say that with the speech I don't like, I want to cut out, and the speech I like is somehow horrible and suspect.
Your time is up, sir.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Friesel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 10. We usually adjourn at 10:30, so let's keep it short here.
Thank you.
Nice introduction, huh, Carl?
I get your hint. Thank you. Mr. Moderator, Carl Friesel, Precinct 7. I'm going to take a slightly different tack. I know the hour's late, but I think this is an important principle to establish at this town meeting. I am going to move for indefinite postponement of this, and I hope I get support to do that. And the reason, let me explain the reasons why I think it's important to do that. First of all, this is a bad precedent to set. To start putting resolutions before the town meeting on national, international issues, Supreme Court decisions we like, we don't like. We have a very significant Supreme Court decision that's going to come down before the end of this term on national health insurance. Are we going to come back and debate the result of that Supreme Court decision? One of the most controversial Supreme Court decisions is Roe versus Wade. Do we invite someone to come before us and ask for Congress to pass a constitutional amendment to overturn Roe versus Wade? Frankly, I didn't sign up for town meeting to come here and debate national issues and international issues that don't have a serious, immediate, significant impact on the town of Winchester. And this one does not, clearly. And I think we go down a very dangerous path, as been noted by the Speaker for the Board of Selectmen, if we start getting more partisan in this town meeting. I think that's a very dangerous road for us to go down. And I think from the snippets we've already heard of this debate, these issues can go on and on and on. And I'm not sure that we're going to be enlightened by that, but we're certainly going to have a lot of talk in this arena. So for that reason alone, I say it's not a good idea. Number two, we're not equipped to properly analyze this question. We have had no hearings. I think most of us in this room, if we had to take an exam on the test of what does Citizens United really stand for, I'd say we're going to have a very high flunk rate in this room. And I'd say that includes the lawyers in this room, of which many of you might think there's too many. And that includes me. That's a very, very serious decision with an awful lot of nuances. I've already heard remarks here this evening I won't bother to correct that are incorrect principles of law that have been already spoken in this room. So we're going to be debating. We don't know what we're talking about, but we're filling the room. Not a good use of the town meeting's time. The reason I move for indefinite postponement rather than no, which is what the Board of Selectmen suggests, is that we shouldn't create the implication that we have a point of view on this particular issue. If we vote no, it could be interpreted that we actually have a sentiment that says we favor the decision of the Supreme Court and we oppose a constitutional amendment. I believe a better way of resolving this night, getting home, and by the way, the Red Sox are losing. So if we want to go home, and see the rest of that catastrophe, then I think we ought to get this behind us the right way. Vote for indefinite postponement. We take no stand on this issue. And I think we send a message. Don't bring us resolutions of this kind in the future. Thank you.
We have a motion to indefinitely postpone. Is that seconded? Okay. Further on the question. Gentleman up back, going crazy. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Diab Jarius. I'm in Precinct 8. This is an issue, a fundamental issue about freedom of speech. I don't think it's appropriate to compare it to a Red Sox game. I also think that had the town meetings, which met prior to the Declaration of Independence, only concerned themselves with matters of local economics and zoning and things within their town borders, that we would never have had a revolution, which actually gave us the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, which gave us the freedom of speech. So I think at some level it's an abrogation of our responsibility to continue the revolution which gives us free speech. And I do not believe that a corporation which makes many, many, many more times money than I do should be at the same level as I am in terms of my getting my speech out. I don't have as large a megaphone as GE or IBM does. I have to stand on my own 2 feet, and I can talk to my neighbors, and they can talk to me, but I can't go and put $1 million worth of advertisement on a radio station or a television station. There's already an asymmetry in our ability to have free speech. So the question isn't, let's open up the doors to even more money in politics. The question is, let's level the playing field so that ordinary people can have this free speech which has been taken from us by this abrogation of our rights as individuals. The Constitution was not written for corporations. It was written for individuals. It was written to protect us from a tyrannical government which was going out against individuals. Corporations were not on the minds of the founders of this country. Individuals were. And individual speech is something which should be reserved for individuals, not for corporations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the question on indefinite postponement? Okay, who wants to speak? Gentleman right there in the middle. Oh, representative.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening. Jason Lewis, I represent Precinct 3 in town meeting. I also represent Winchester in the state legislature. I generally agree with the sentiments that have been voiced by the Board of Selectmen and various citizens that the vast majority of issues that are considered either by state government or by our federal government are not issues that should be considered taken up by Winchester town meeting. So I don't think we have a point of dispute there. The reason why I think this particular issue is fundamentally different is because this issue gets at the integrity of our elections. And because of that, every single elected body should care about this issue. And that applies as much to Winchester Town Meeting, since every single one of us is elected here, as it does to our Board of Selectmen, our Planning Board, our other local boards and commissions. I remember after this decision was announced in 2010, there was a briefing that was held by Michael Sullivan, who's the longtime executive director of the state's Office of Campaign and Political Finance, so somebody who has worked in this area for many, many years. And what he said to all of the legislators and others who were assembled is that he said that over time, the greatest impact of this decision in terms of the torrent of money that will be unleashed to influence our elections will not be in the presidential race, will not be in races for the U.S. Congress or the United States Senate. It will be races for state offices and local races, because that's where particular interests can have the most impact, and where the resources that they can bring to bear on one particular side of an issue will vastly outgun the resources on another side. I do want to clarify, since a gentleman previously raised some numbers from, I believe from my own personal fundraising, just to clarify how our campaign finance works, and in fact, the ability to cite those numbers is a good example of that. We have, both at the local level, the state level, and the federal level, very strict rules about contributions that can be made directly to candidates. For example, in Massachusetts, a candidate for any state office can accept no more than $500 per year. And that money can come from individuals, that money can come from corporations, that money can come from unions. But in the case of corporations and unions, they need to first form a political action committee, and then that political action committee can directly make a contribution to a candidate. The reason that's important is because, first of all, there are very tight restrictions on what a candidate can receive in absolute dollar amounts from any one entity. And second, there's very strict disclosure rules. So any amounts of money that I receive, or that any of you who've run for local office or any other office receive, all of that is publicly disclosed, so everyone knows where any funding is coming from. What the Citizens United decisions deal with is what are commonly referred to as independent expenditures. So these are sums of money that are spent really outside of the direct campaign finance system. Prior to the decision and after the decision, corporations or unions or any other entities can continue to spend as much money as they want to advocate on a particular issue. I think we've all seen the ads that have been running for a long time now that the oil and gas industry have been funding, talking about their views on energy, and that's perfectly fine. They have every right to do that. That's their own free speech. But what the McCain-Feingold law did, which was continuing a tradition of, as you heard, of over 100 years since the Tillman Act in 1907, was say that those independent expenditures, while they could advocate on behalf of an issue, would not be able to advocate for or against a particular candidate in an election. That was what the law said. And so what Citizens United said was no, that they could spend whatever amounts of money they want to advocate on behalf of or against a particular candidate. And that was really a line that was crossed that opens up the floodgates for spending to influence elections. If I could make one final point, which is, I want to echo what Susan said earlier, which is really where this can have an impact is when a local issue is being decided. The casino issue is a real one right now. There are communities that are having to, under the state law, have the local option to make a decision on whether they will allow a casino to be sited in their community or nearby. Those interests who care about this can therefore come in, can spend whatever they want to influence a Board of Selectmen race, a planning board race, or a direct ballot referendum to influence the outcome of that election. I don't think it takes a lot of imagination to think about what amount of money could make the difference. So I would urge you to please give this serious consideration. This absolutely does impact our own town meeting and elected body.
Your time is up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
The last one. No, not yet. I'm going to recognize there's a lady there that I haven't been able to see, and Mary, she'll speak next, and she'll be the last, and we'll put the question.
Well, as an elected official, then I will pledge that my position right now, and hope yours will be as well, that we can now all refute corporate money, and I'll assume that you'll be giving yours back in the near future. Then, although the Citizens United did allow advocacy groups and money to be contributed directly to the advocacy for particular candidates, it still cannot go directly to candidates. If you are going to tax corporations, if you are going to write laws against corporations, you have to allow them to advocate on their own behalf, even if it's against a particular individual who has a particular position against theirs. The only other thing I'll ask, just on a point of information for the question that was before on the indefinite postponement versus voting no, is there any difference in how that can be brought back before town meeting? In other words, is it easier, simpler to resubmit an indefinite proposal as opposed to one that's been turned down?
Well, if we vote for indefinite postponement, you can ask at another town meeting or even at the end of this one for reconsideration.
As opposed to if no, then no is no?
It takes a 2/3 vote.
For reconsideration?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lady up back, and then we're going to vote. And I apologize for those folks that have babysitters and what have you that try to get out of here at 10:30. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town boards, town meeting members, and Winchester residents, I will try to be brief, but I think it's important that we hear another point of view on this. Warrant Article 6 asks town meeting to approve a resolution on Citizens United and says it is in order to restore democracy to the people. I would submit to you that this resolution is not about restoring democracy to the people, but about silencing the free speech that is afforded every one of us as American citizens in our First Amendment rights. A majority of the Supreme Court judges understood and agreed with this premise, which was the reason for their decision in this case. Aside from the fact that this resolution seems better suited for presentation at the state or federal level, it would seem that any message sent from the Winchester Town Meeting to call for this amendment would be an indication that we in Winchester do not appreciate or support the great privilege our right to free speech affords every one of us. There appear to be two basic objections by the authors of this resolution and their supporters to the Supreme Court finding. One, that the court saw corporations, unions, and other organizations as a person or groups of persons. And two, that the court ruling did not restrict the amount of money corporations, unions, and organizations, all made up of persons, could spend on political elections. In regard to the first objection, it is obvious that corporations and other groups do not spring forth on their own. They are made up of one person or many persons who have joined together to form a group, a business, a corporation, a news media agency, political PAC, Hollywood consortium, or many others. And because people are the root of all of these organizations, the right of free speech must be extended to them all. You cannot limit one without silencing them all. Even though the court's decision was not unanimous, and even though it carefully considered and reversed two old cases of precedent, the majority of Supreme Court judges understood the ramifications of limiting the rights of Americans to express themselves freely, whether alone or in a group. Doing so would be a very slippery slope, and the pit at the bottom of that slope could be almost impossible to escape once entered. In regard to the second objection, probably most of us here tonight and many other Winchester residents I have spoken with over the past few weeks agree that large amounts of money are sometimes spent during political campaigns by groups of people, and we would also agree that these people sometimes skew the information in order to manipulate public opinion. That can be offensive. In fact, it could be said some of the free speech we have heard has been far from civil and sometimes downright nasty. However, we would surely also have to agree that in our democratic republic, we are free to ignore or condemn what is purely fictional, misleading, or negative, as well as to investigate, challenge, correct, and discuss and come to our own conclusions about it. For the freedom to do so is certainly another facet of our First Amendment rights, and one that we should guard tenaciously. Are we not proud and grateful for that? Maintaining the integrity of our elections is not just about railing against big money spent on disingenuous free speech. It is about participating fully in the election process and holding groups of people who spread misleading information accountable by doing our research, finding the facts, and exposing the information for what it is at the grassroots level, to our families, to our friends, to our neighbors, and in internet blogs and letters to the editor if necessary. More importantly, it is insisting on voter ID legislation, which would ensure every citizen his or her right to vote and reduce the incidence of fraud evidenced even in our own state. There will always be some who will oppose free speech if it disagrees with their own point of view, but silencing it is neither the solution to maintaining the integrity of our electoral process, nor is it the route to protecting our First Amendment rights.
Your time has expired. Do you wish more time?
May I have 30 seconds?
30 seconds? I'll give you a minute.
Thank you.
Move to second the speaker's time be extended 1 minute. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Therefore, it is important that Winchester residents not be a party to a request that would stifle one of the most fundamental rights we have as American citizens, that of free speech. I respectfully ask the town meeting vote no on the resolution presented in Article 6. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the motion on indefinite postponement? All those in favor of indefinite postponement, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. I'd say the ayes have it. And ladies and gentlemen, it's moved and seconded that this meeting be adjourned until 7:30, May 7th, 2012, right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our coverage of the first session of Winchester Spring Town Meeting. I'm Alan Iden. And if you've been watching just now, we've been running a little later than usual. Town meeting usually tries to adjourn around 10:30, but if you just tuned in, you saw about the last half hour of passionate discussion over Article 6. Let's get to that in a moment. Let's go back and review what was covered earlier in this first session. Most of the first part of the meeting was Article 1, which has traditionally been the reports by town committee members, town boards and committee members. We heard from the chairman of the board of the Finance Committee, Patty Cluey, talking about the town's budget for fiscal year 13, FY13, said the budget does maintain appropriate reserves and is balanced, and that's a combination of good luck and good management. Education costs have increased about $2.1 million or 5.8%. And she said there are opportunities for expense reductions in contracts, health, and education. Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Jim Johnson, welcomed the new town manager, Richard Howard, commented on the work by Mary Ellen Lannon and Mark Toogood during the interim process while a town manager was being chosen. Talked about the work of the Board of Selectmen on the Right Lock Farm and looking for new proposals, examining employee benefits, working on a 3-year plan, working on energy management within the town, and improvements to the trash collection process, transfer station, and improvements to the town center, as well as flood mitigation. Other projects they have are to reopen Ginn Field, put a second floodgate at the Center Falls, make improvements to the DPW complex, and of course the ongoing project of the Vincent Owen School and the Winchester High School feasibility study. School Committee Chairman Chris Linsky talked about the elements of success in the Winchester school system, also said the school system enrollment was growing at about 2% per year, which of course requires more space, more teachers, and more administrations. The ongoing construction projects at Vincent Owen, feasibility study at Winchester High School, and reconstruction of Lynch bathrooms. He said the school department will once again be at 100% of capacity in 2015, even with the improvements such as the new VO school. We heard from our new town manager, Richard Howard, who thanked the town for a wonderful welcome and a great transition over the last 4 months. He said his most important work over these last 4 months has been on a budget that is level funded without a operational override. Wants the town to reduce its reliance on free cash to balance the budget, continue to reduce health care costs, and which are $10 million currently and growing at about 10% per year. Again, thanking the staff of his office and Mark Toogood for his welcome and the ease of the transition into this new job from transition from mayor of Malden to town manager of Winchester. Lance Grenzebach from the planning board talked about the planning board's work on a new master plan. He said the last one was done in 1953 and that the new one must pay more attention to neighborhood quality. The planning board is looking to update the zoning bylaws, which were last updated significantly in the 70s. And work on new subdivision regulations, particularly in the area of storm runoff. He said the state and EPA will be starting to control much more carefully any runoff into the Aberjona, which is going to mean new regulations regarding impervious surfaces and filtration. He said there is a need to generate new revenue and talked about potential development in the town center as a source of new revenue for the town. And he also said the planning board is seeking and getting grants for their work. John French from the library trustees talked about some of the changes to the library, including changing the heating system, new book drops, and a self-checkout system. He promoted the fact that there are free e-books available for people who have Kindles and iPads and the such are available for download from the library's website. He talked about programs such as a series of speakers sponsored by the Rotary Club and the Roar program for to encourage reading among children. He said fundraisers by the trustees and the Friends of the Library have allowed the library to stay open Sundays, staying open Sundays for the rest of the year. Jessica Pfefferman from the Board of Health talked about thanking the Board of Health members, talked about some of their initiatives in the area of new tobacco regulations, health education to daycare and schools, hazardous waste collection for chemicals and medications, rabies clinic, and the work on the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community. She also reminded the residents that April 28th is Hazardous Waste Collection Day. After the recess, we came back for some spirited debate on a zoning demolition bylaw. Articles 2 and 3. Article 2 expanded the current demolition bylaw from about 702 properties in town to all properties built before 1945, which would have been increased of about 2,000 to 3,000 more properties. The proposal was brought forth by John Lemanger, chairman of the Winchester Historical Commission. He talked about the commission, that it had 7 members appointed by the town manager to preserve the historical character of the town. The demolition delay was first implemented in 1995 as a 3-month delay. It has been amended to a 6-month, and now this proposal is to amend it to a 12-month delay. It allows negotiations, he said in his words, it allows negotiations with owners to consider alternatives to demolition. It does not prohibit demolition or renovations. Again, it currently covers about 702 properties in town and calls for a public hearing to hear views within 21 days of a demolition application. Article 2, again, expands the coverage to pre-1945 properties. Article 3, a related one, clarifies the regulations under which the Historical Commission operates. He said since 2000, 65 pre-1945 properties have been demolished. And he gave a couple of examples on some slides for the town meeting members. He said the commission looked at rules in 25 towns. He says some have fixed dates, some have rolling dates, some have historical districts, and some restrict all demolition. Again, he said this would add about 2,600 properties, about 32% to the properties covered by this demolition delay restriction. He said under the current law, 245 applications have been received, 19 delays were imposed, and of those, 6 properties were saved and 6 properties were demolished. Town meeting member Anthony Conti rose to oppose it. He said regulation should protect public health and safety. In his words, my home is my castle, and he is very concerned about property rights. And he said that big new houses bring new revenue to the town. Marion Crandall, town meeting member, also came out against. She said it was, quote unquote, stripping rights away without notice. She said there was a 3-fold increase in the coverage and our property owners should be allowed to opt out. John Natale said, gave a scenario in which an elderly couple would not be able to leave their house for a year or sell their house for a year. It would force our owners to stay. And he said the Historical Commission, in his view, has too much power. Doug Marmon from the Board of Selectmen said the selectmen were in favor of it. He said Winchester is noted for its beautiful neighborhoods. He said this delay may cause some inconvenience, but it's balanced against the rights of neighborhoods and the town in general. And he also said it only applies to the most radical of renovations or demolition, and commented that the property owner had the final decision. Jim Johnson from the Board of Selectmen said he was the opposition to this, and he suggested homeowners should have a right to opt out of this decision, and asked what is the financial impact on both the owners and the town, and this should be modified to allow notification. Well, there was a motion to indefinitely postpone this article, we had heard from another town meeting member who asked, are we a community or a bunch of landowners who share a zip code, and urged support of the law. The planning board also said they supported the bylaw by a vote of 5-0. He said the zoning laws preserve the value of all properties, and most demolitions are not being done by the owners of the property, but by purchasers of the property. However, town meeting voted 85-80 to indefinitely postpone consideration of Article 2. Article 3, to amend the demolition bylaw, which would be covering, of course, the current 700 properties. We heard from Susan Keats, formerly of the Historical Commission, the Historical Society, and the town archivist, who said they, as an archivist, they inventoried 2,800 properties as the archivist in 1979, and commented that historic homes are what attracted people to Winchester. Carl Friesel, town meeting member, said that this warrant article improved the process for the 700-plus homes and clarifies the criteria for demolition. So that Article 3 was passed by a vote of 101-58. Article 3. Article 4, dealing with public shade trees, was postponed to, was requested, and town meeting approved postponement until after Article 30. Article 5, to allow electronic distribution of reports. The maker of that asked for it be postponed till the first item of business on May 7th, our next meeting, to tweak some of the language in that. That was also indefinitely postponed. Well, the most passionate debate of the evening was on Article 6. It was a resolution to ask the town meeting to urge the Congress to propose an amendment to overturn the Supreme Court decision, popularly known as Citizen United decision, to allow corporations the freedom of speech. Citizens United, according to Susan Verdecchio, who was the proponent of this article, Citizens United does not leave the power to the people. It restores the power. An amendment would restore the power to the people and take them away from corporations that, in her words, corporations are not people. She said that the vast amount of money going to super PACs would drown out citizens. Another quote from her was, vast funds to drown out people. And she said on a local level, imagine a company like Avalon Bay or a casino proponent's effect in a small town. She asked the question, why is the bottle bill at the state level stagnated? And inferred that it was because of contributions from the bottle industry, despite public support for an expanded bottle bill. She also gave examples of many towns that have passed this same resolution and some who are pending. Anthony Condi rose to oppose it. In his view, it was no business of town meeting to do this, and he said that corporations have rights, in his words. Jennifer Wilson from the Board of Selectmen said the board respects the passion and the views of the proponents, but opposed it. They said the political nature of the article was not the business of town meeting, and town meeting should leave party politics at the door. Another town meeting member said, said in their opinion, this is an amendment to restrict the rights of people, not expand them. Carl Friesel rose to propose an indefinite postponement. In his comments, he said it's a bad precedent to set for town meeting. It's a dangerous road to partisanship, again in his words. He said town meeting should not vote no or yes on this, but take no stand, which would mean voting to indefinitely postpone. One of the last speakers was Representative Jason Lewis, who said the views on this should apply to every elected body, not just state governments, state or federal governments. He listed the restrictions that are currently in place on campaign contributions, and he said formally you could not influence a candidate. Corporations could not donate to influence a candidate, just an issue, but that has changed with this Supreme Court decision. Well, again, we heard from a few more town meeting members, both for and against this, but ultimately the town meeting did, on a voice vote to indefinitely postpone Article 6. And that's where we wrap up this first session of Winchester Spring Town Meeting. The next meeting of that will be a week from Thursday when well, normally that would be to start considering the budget, but there is the Article 5 will be considered as the first order of business. That's a week from this Thursday, or May 5th. And just a community programming note that was being promoted here as a fundraiser is going to be held on this Friday, the 27th, at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. Madeline Albright, once again, will be speaking. It's a fundraiser for the Connect and Commit group at Winchester High School. The tickets are $65. They include Ms. Albright's book, which she'll be signing there, and those tickets are available at Bookends downtown or at the door. Once again, it's a fundraiser for Connect and Commit. Former Secretary of State Madeline Albright at the Town Hall this Friday at 7 p.m. Community program note. And that wraps up our coverage here tonight. We want to thank you for joining us. We want to thank the team here at WinCam that has stayed until this quite late hour here for a town meeting. Again, town meeting tries to get out at about 10:30. So we want to thank you for sticking with us, and we'll resume our live coverage of Winchester Town Meeting on Thursday, May 7th. So for all of us here at WinCam, my name is Alan Iden. Have a great night.